this episode, new theme.
Oh yeah. We should say thank you to Jeff.
Yeah.
They said they would come on, and they were like, I can make it on depending on the day you like me to come on. And I was like, well, it's kind of up to you. We don't really have anything specific lined up right now. And then they never told me what day they wanted to do.
Listen, there's a lot going on right now.
Oh, I know. I don't blame them. I'm not. That's not me. Don't take that as me.
Yeah.
Knocking Jeff at all. Jeff has a lot. Jeff's is a professor and PhD student, so they have a lot of stuff going on in October.
And then throw on the October surprise.
Yeah, I thought the October surprise was gonna be like he had a secret child somewhere.
That hardly seems surprising.
That's what I mean. It's like I wasn't gonna be that surprised. I assumed his October surprise would be like, that makes sense. Not him maybe dying. That would be wild.
That'd be probably the best outcome.
Mm-hmm. I'm not getting my hopes up, but
y'all want to end up on some lists?
Sure. I've been on that list since I was 15 years old, because I used to say that shit about Bush, and people would be like, you can't say that. And then I would say 1 million dead Iraqis disagree.
All right.
Okay, I'm recording. Is everyone recording?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We'll do 20.
Sounds good.
Beautiful.
My first clap was still, the waveform caught it fine, but it was a little quiet, and the waveform didn't peak. And so then I did a much louder clap for the second one, and it was
Clipping.
It definitely clipped. Yeah.
Wonderful.
The waveform on my first clap looks weird. It looks like a clap, but it's just, there's like a weird dip and then it goes back.
Yeah,
up.
that's my second one does that, but you can clearly see where the attack is, so it should be fine.
It spikes, dips, and then goes back up. It's weird.
I don't mean to shame anyone, but Fixer is a very gentle clapper. His waveforms were like tiny. It was great. So
I do everything
very
loud and proud.
He was like, it was very polite, and I appreciated it, but it also made it hard to find.
And then we also clapped twice, so I imagine that didn't make it any easier.
It actually did make it easier.
Some people. Well, no, I mean we did like the clap twice, like we did the sync twice.
Oh right.
Oh yeah.
That is true.
Because some people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make a reference to a song that you just found out existed.
I'm just making a reference to some people on this podcast who forgot to hit record last time.
Was that?
That was Sam.
That was Sam.
Yeah, I was gonna say. That's what I thought. I don't.
Bad, but okay.
No, I didn't do that.
Okay.
I've done that like one time.
I apologize. I was wrong.
I'm not.
It's wrong.
I'm not offended. It's fine. If
The Muffin Man is seated at the table in the laboratory of the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen. Reaching for
Yes. Now you know of it. All right. Should we do this thing?
Yeah.
Have we been putting it off
this
because there's
wet
nothing to
sock.
talk about this
no,
week?
I'm excited about both the games that I'm bringing.
That's okay. That's good. Okay.
I like how Alice and Andre and I basically have pretty much nothing, though.
That's great. So I can just talk for a really long time about the stuff that I brought.
Maybe I have some really in-depth, great thoughts about Final Fantasy 12.
I don't care that much. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Wow.
I couldn't.
Dang.
I had to seize that moment, even though that's a hateful thing that I don't mean.
Hey, guess what, Pat? I don't give a shit about your games.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm actually.
What else is new?
Aha, gotcha. Ha. No,
Exactly.
I am interested to hear stories about Star Wars Squadrons, though I don't think I want to play. But we'll get into that. All right. Do not adjust your set, your set. This is not an error. This is the new Gaming Fix podcast theme created by our dear friend Jeff Davis for episode 141 on October 3rd, 2020. I'm your host, Andre Cole, aka your partner's favorite track off of Mouth Dreams. I am joined today by Pat.
It's definitely Closer Flies. That is the one for me. That
one's like just real good in terms of like, I like that one as like a song.
And I like after the song before it ends and then the music kicks in, I was like, oh God, what is this going to be? Because I'm a pretty big Nine Inch Nails fan. And then when the lyrics come in, I like slammed my head, not like dangerously, but I definitely like dropped my head onto my desk and keyboard and just like face planted my keyboard with my arms at my sides. And my partner was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I am not."
Great. Allison.
I still haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but the two songs that were specifically told that I need to listen to were Limp Wicket and Wah, and both were great. So now I need to go back and listen to the whole album.
Just a Baby is a close second for me. I think you'll appreciate that one quite a lot.
Cool.
I really like Ribs. And Alex.
I was actually going to say that Ribs is a strong one. But if not Ribs, I might say Cannibals.
Yeah.
Which one's Cannibals?
That's the THX one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one is something. Yeah. There's only one song that I don't like to hear on the album, and it's the first one.
I love that. I thought it was
very
extremely funny.
It is extremely funny. It's just, it sounds so bad. Like it's such a upsetting noise to hear over and over, and he makes it like really loud and kind of like clips and stuff, and it's like,
but then he
oh
harmonizes
God,
it.
stop this. The one that leans on that uses I don't want to spoil it for anyone. There's one near the end of the album that is for the most part just the song but with the lyrics rearranged, and it's that one threw me after having gotten, it's like you go through the journey of listening to the album and then you get to that one and it's like, what are you doing? And it's very funny.
Are you talking about?
I'm talking about My Cigarette Wife.
Oh, right.
It's an old man in your Chardonnay. Yeah.
Really funny.
If you haven't already, you should go listen to Neil Cicierga's Mouth Dreams, which is one of the best things to happen in 2020. One of the few good things.
And you should, if you haven't heard his albums before, you should go back and listen to the other ones too.
Yeah,
I don't think you got to listen to them in order.
Sounds, Mouth Silence.
I think you can get into Mouth Dreams to get with the zeitgeist and then go back to the other ones. I don't think it's there's technically concepts to some of them, but they're not present in the music at all.
I would say
a lot of the early work is Smash Mouth centric.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
he kind of started the Smash Mouth movement. He's kind of started the internet as we know it.
There are so many things that he's done, and you're just like,
if you don't know, Neil Cicierga did Potter Puppet Pals, Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny.
That's the one that like blows my mind a little.
Oh yeah, no, that was like, excuse me, what? So many other things.
You know those gifs of like Shrek where his head blows up and it's just like gets all deformed and messy and weird? Or like there's lots of other gifs, but like he wrote the Photoshop plugin that does that.
Okay, of course.
Like stuff like that. Where it's like, okay, yeah. So Neil Cicierega basically just like invented the internet humor as we know it today. He's the best.
Yep. And
honestly, for real.
Did it because he was homeschooled and his parents were like, you can just learn whatever you want as long as you like pass these tests. You can do whatever you want, and that's what he spent his time learning, was making internet music. And
Oh yeah, he has a
Stuff
whole
like
TED
that.
talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
you should watch this TED talk.
Yeah. It also made the definitive version of the Ghostbusters theme song,
Oh my god.
which you can hear on Mouth. What was the last one he did?
Silence?
Mouth Silence, was that the
Or
most
Mouth
recent
Sounds?
one?
I can't remember actually.
Mouth Sounds, I think, was like the first one.
There's Mouth Moods, right? And then Mouth Silence. Anyway,
it is from Mouth Moods. I have looked.
What is impressive is that the gimmick is, if you've not picked up on it, is like taking different songs and sounds and smashing them together in different ways.
Yeah.
But it's even though if you hear that, if you told me that, I would go, I'm not interested in that. I don't care. Like, moving on. But he consistently is surprising and hilarious every time. And even knowing the gimmick over and over again, it's still like, oh my God, I can't believe this when you listen to the music. So it's even if you hear that and you're like, I'm not interested in that, I highly recommend just giving it a shot, because I'm the kind of person who is cynical about that kind of humor in a way that if you explained it to me and I hadn't heard it first, I would have just been like, this is stupid. But I heard it was Idle Thumbs that first recommended it to me, and I trust them on pretty much everything. So I listened, and it's very good.
If I were to recommend 2 songs from the back catalog, I would recommend Time, all caps, because that one's very hilarious, and Annoyed Grunt.
Yep. Yes. That's very good. The one that so one of the things that I used to do, I have not done it to my current partner because
you created the Endless Jeopardy Twitter account?
Yes.
Damn it, what has he not done?
And a Goosebumps like generator Twitter account.
I did not do this to my current partner, but to most of my friends and to every person I had dated prior, since 2015 when it came out, which I guess was only a couple people, but whatever. At some point on a car ride, I would put on Full Mouth and just let it go, and so that they got really annoyed, because the joke there is so funny, and the way that it's very much a too many cooks situation, and I don't know, I really appreciate playing it for people who don't have any idea who Neil Cicerega is and like what the music is like. It's extremely funny.
I love that we talked almost 10 minutes about Neil Cicerega to start this cast.
It's good.
It's the best.
It's as good as any of the video games I brought this week. So,
wow, that's high praise.
I wonder. There was a really good tweet that I saw, and I can't remember what it was, but it basically was like, Neil Cicerega is like girl talk for people who are terminally online or something like that.
And the thing is, I don't personally like girl talk that much. I understand why other people do. It's not really my jam. That's the reason why. If someone had sold it to me as, oh, it's like funny girl talk, I would have been like, I don't care. But it's so much more than that.
Oh yeah. It's very good. Very good. You know what else is good sometimes? Video games.
I think video games are very good right now.
So I've been told. Well, okay, strong words.
Yeah.
Somebody ought to hold you to them.
Everyone on this podcast is too much of a coward to play either of the video games that I brought this week. So
I'm interested in Squadrons.
I want to play it. It's just I don't want to.
I told my girlfriend I wasn't gonna spend any more money unless I can get a PS5. So I can't buy any more games.
That's sort of shackling your fate to Sony in a I wouldn't let Sony own your wallet like that.
That's not actually the agreement, but
no, I don't.
Anyway, yeah, okay, so we're here. Star Wars Squadrons, that came out.
Saving the best for last. Okay. Star Wars Squadrons.
Okay, show your hand early.
Yeah. We'll see. I have to play more Star Wars Squadrons. I think I like the other thing I brought more, but I like Star Wars Squadrons a lot more now that I've played some more of it than when I first started it. My initial I plugged in my HOTAS and booted that game up, and it has a lot of technical problems, like in a weird way that like reviews didn't super touch on a whole lot, but it has a lot of, it recognized my HOTAS, which was good, because at first it seemed like maybe it wouldn't. But the classic thing is happening where you have to go in and set the bindings for that stuff manually, and people are like super mad about that, which I don't understand, because it's insane to expect them to come up with bindings for 1,000 different joysticks that they don't even maybe know exist.
Well, does Flight Simulator, like I know they're not.
No, you have to set up the bindings in Flight Sim too.
Exactly.
There are two very popular. There's a very popular HOTAS and a very popular yoke, both Logitech or Cytec, that Flight Simulator recognizes and auto binds, but the bindings are not necessarily optimal. Like, they're what they think are optimal, but you're probably going to want to change things anyway. This is just how simmy games work. You always have to map your controls yourself. You spend a session messing with them. Anyway, the bigger issue with my HOTAS is, for a lot of sticks, there's like a huge dead zone, so you can't do any precise movement really, because you have to move the stick halfway into its range of motion to even get it to like do anything. I
did see that there's like a pre-launch command you can run that will just stop that or like fix it.
I'll have to see. You can do it in the CFG files. You can fix a lot of the issues. The problem is that it uses EAC, which is good because I
EAC?
I get easy anti-cheat.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's a like not kernel. It's like technically like root access, but it doesn't access kernels the same way that like the Vanguard one does, and it doesn't run when the game's not running. It's very commonly used in a lot of games.
Similar to BattleEye or something?
Yes, very similar. It's almost identical as far as I know. And it's good. I'm glad that it has EAC, because this kind of game would get absolutely ruined by people cheating. But you also can't edit the CFG files at all and then play multiplayer. It'll just like trip the EAC and you won't be able to play. So a lot of those things, but maybe if it's like a command line argument or something, you can do it.
Because you know how Steam has the thing.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find where
options.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember where I saw it.
I'll look into it, because that would be nice to get that working better, because it is really fun with the HOTAS. It's just the dead zone is not great. They're aware of it as an issue as well, and they're apparently going to introduce some settings. At first, I thought people were making it up, but there's like, it does feel bad to use my stick, and there's like video evidence where people brought up their like calibration software with the game, and you can see that it's registering in the calibration software as being at like 20% motion, and then in the game nothing's happening. So that part's kind of frustrating. So I switched over to controller, and it feels really good on an Xbox controller. But the big thing that I want to say about this game up front to anyone who's interested in playing it, it's fucking hard. It's like, it is really, really, really challenging. And my initial reaction to playing it was, holy shit, this X-Wing is slow. Which is, at first I was basically like, this feels like shit to play. Oh my God. And I was like really sad. But then I got in like a TIE fighter cockpit, and the TIE fighter feels really agile. And then I got in an A-Wing, and the A-Wing feels really agile and super fast. And I realized that the problem is that I have been mostly engaging with space sims where you spin, they're like non-Newtonian, so you spin like super fast. You can just kind of spin however you want, and then kick your engines on, and then it gives you momentum in a direction. And that stuff is like, like free space or whatever. And that stuff is really, really cool, but that's not what Star Wars is. Star Wars is a game where the ships fly like airplanes, even though it's space. And that's very much how it's modeled here, and it definitely takes some getting used to, and is legitimately very hard at first. And when you get
feeling, though.
What I love about it, my friends, so I played a couple missions of the campaign. The missions in the campaign are very cool. I think they're designed really well. I don't share the same I don't have the same issues with the AI being bad that some people have expressed. I think the AI is fine. It's no worse than like enemies in a first person shooter or whatever. You definitely, if you manage to get on an enemy's tail, they kind of don't know what to do, but I think that's fine in a game where you're in the single player where you're asked to kill like sometimes 10 or 20 enemies. It's not that big of a deal if they don't really like respond super well once you've got behind them. It kind of feels like you've won at that point, and it's okay. I will say that the script is a little rough in spots for the story. The general story is very much a Star Wars video game so far, but it's fine. It has some really cool characters in it, but there are moments of script that I'm like, this feels unnatural. Like there's a really good character who is a former racing pilot, and they are having a conversation with another character, and that other character is like, do you remember this race? And the character they're talking to is like, yes, I watched that on the HoloNet. And it's just like, this is not how people talk. And it's exacerbated.
I said those exact
Wars
words.
it is.
I said those exact words to you before we started this podcast.
It's exacerbated by the fact that I think most of the VO was recorded in quarantine, because to my ear, it sounds like a lot of voice actors doing home recordings,
like sitting in their closets trying to like make a professional sound space.
Some of the audio quality is like, there was like one moment where a character was like, we have to defeat the blah 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 blah, and it was like really clipped out and weird, and I was like, whoa, that's not.
Hey, listen, the rebels have to have some shoddy equipment to work with, and they've got to do with what they got.
This is a person talking to me. This is a person talking to me in the room.
Okay.
But at the same time, though, I would much rather have, assuming that what it is we have, 6 months of production left, and we need to wrap these reads, and we can either go back and forth for 2 weeks trying to get alternate takes or just work with what we got. I would much rather have this than have the game get delayed into next year, or have have no voice acting or whatever. So it's a pretty minor criticism, because I think they're working with what they got and they did their best. And it's not that the voice actors are bad. It's just that you combine the script with probably remote direction, and it leads to some awkward reads and stuff. With that said, some of the characters are really good. Both of the characters in the HoloNet descript like conversation are like characters that I really, really like. And I think, Allison, that's something you would probably really like about the game too, is they're like, Star Wars often runs into a problem of highlighting either the like major players, the like Jedi and the high ranking officials, or the specifically like smugglers, like scum characters.
Right. Yeah.
And both of those things are interesting, and I like them both, but there was old expanded universe, and they're doing this with the books now too, so it's not like they aren't doing it, but old expanded universe got into a lot of military sci-fi stuff that I really like, that was like, here are the people on the ground fighting, or in this case in space, but and
on the space fighting.
Yes. Yeah. And Clone Wars does that to an extent, but it still largely centers around Anakin and Ahsoka. So it's like, it still kind of focuses. There are episodes that like zoom into the clones themselves that are great. Those are usually the best episodes. And so what you're getting here is that kind of thing of, technically you're like a special forces squadron, but it still feels like the characters are
of rogues.
Yeah. Well, Rogue Squadron also exists. You are not a member of Rogue Squadron. I will say there are some really cool characters that pop up from the fiction that I was not expecting.
What's the
Jar Jar Binks?
Dax? No. The God, what's his name? Dax Rendar. I don't know.
Dash Rendar.
Dash Rendar. Yeah. I have not seen him yet, but I would not be surprised if he made an appearance. Although I don't think he's canon anymore. So I don't know.
Cowards.
Yep.
Yeah. They brought Thrawn back into canon though, so who knows? This could be the game to bring Rendar.
Is the horse here?
No,
What?
unfortunately, no. But there's another very good alien that I really, really like. I'm gonna say they because it sounds like they have a kind of feminine voice, but it's hard to know. Which is, by the way, another thing that this game does that I fucking love. The character creation there is no gendering whatsoever. You can choose any face and pair it with any voice and any body type. Either body type. There's kind of a feminine body type and a masculine body type. I thought that was awesome when I was creating characters, and people are melting down because there is only one roughly kind of white looking dude, and the rest of the characters are all are either people of color or women, which I thought was pretty great on the New Republic side. Anyway, the single player is fine. I wouldn't buy the game just for that, frankly, at $40. I think if it goes on sale at some point, or if you bought a month of the EA Origin Access Premier or whatever they're calling it now, Play Pro, for $15 and played through the story, that'd be a great way to do it.
Or if you wait till next month,
it won't be on. It won't be included. In that.
It's you don't even get like the 10 hours or whatever.
You might actually. I don't know.
Play 10 hours. With
you
Origin
could definitely. The story, from what I hear, is about 7 hours long, so you could totally eke in. I think with the trial. Which I think they're fine with, because this game is a multiplayer game more than anything. The story is fine. It's a good 6-7 hours from what I understand.
I've heard it's basically a big tutorial for the multiplayer.
From what I understand, you learn a lot of the techniques that you use in the multiplayer.
Par for the course for like a Battlefront or a Battlefield or
for a DICE developed campaign. Yeah.
And it's good too, because this game is really complicated. So the fact that they deliver that stuff to you early on through the campaign is good.
But sorry, that being said, if they made like a Star Wars Squadrons mixed with like Bad Company, oh man.
Yeah, I think that there's potential for that too. If they ever were to make another one of these, I think they could improve on certain aspects of the campaign. This game feels like it could easily be a foundation for something that's a little more open and more focused on single player. So I really hope that it does well, and that's something that Motive has designs on, because it has a lot of technical issues. Like I said, the HOTAS stuff is a bit frustrating. It has this I've never seen. It's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. You can turn on VSync, but the game will still try to run at around 400 frames per second. And it turns your PC into a fucking jet engine. And because the game is pretty well optimized, so it's not that hard to hit. I'm playing it on Ultra, and I have a pretty powerful PC, but I bought a new video card this year, but it's not like a supercomputer. And it can run the game. It can hit peaks of 300 frames per second. However, the performance at that level is like an airplane shaking apart. Like it because it's bouncing around so much between frames. So it feels like it's running at about 20 frames per second, because the tearing is so bad and it's so jittery because of the bouncing frame rates.
You sure this isn't like meant to be immersive mode, so that way you can feel like you're in an X-Wing?
It's terrible. Or playing it like that is, I don't think it's an issue on consoles. I think this is a PC specific issue. Playing it like that is awful. So what I found was I was able to go into the NVIDIA control panel and force it to run at 60 and at the video card interface level, and that fixed it for me. But it's frustrating to use it with VR, because then you have to change the settings to the refresh rate on your VR headset whenever you launch the game. So that issue is very frustrating, and one that I hope they fix, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to play it who maybe don't want to mess with their video card settings. And it's really frustrating.
Hopefully they get that ironed out.
And it only seems to trigger in multiplayer, so you can play it some and then it'll just kick off. And I didn't even realize what was happening at first, and my friend said I should turn on the FPS meter in Steam, and I did, and then I saw it flipping out. But if you fix that, I will say it also has the worst initial, if you try to launch it in VR first, it is one of the worst experiences I've ever had with a VR game, because I launched it and then it immediately pops an Origin login like dialogue box on a black screen. but you can't see your mouse anywhere because you're in VR, and I guess Steam VR has disabled the mouse cursor. And it uses Steam VR as its like VR firmware or whatever on every storefront. And so you can't like log in, you can't interact with the login at all. So you have to like quit out, take your headset off, launch it again and log in. And then it pops a huge window of like a bunch of accessibility options, which is great. It has some really good accessibility options from what I saw. Maybe not all the ones needed, but it's moving in a better direction at least. The problem is interacting with that menu in VR sucks. Then I finally got past that window, and then it shows like these kind of like motion graphic like story. It's fine because it's like, oh, the Empire destroyed Alderaan and now you're a pilot and blah 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 blah. And it's like just a quick way to get you into the story. But then it just sat there at a black screen forever and didn't load anything. So I just kind of gave up and was like, all right, well, I guess I'll play it not in VR for a while first. But then I came back to it after I had gotten through the opening stuff in VR, and it's really cool. Playing with like a HOTAS with a VR headset on is really, really cool. And feeling like you're sitting physically in an X-Wing cockpit is definitely like dream come true, I think, for a lot of people. And so, and from what I understand, it works really well on PSVR. There was a kind gentleman that we were playing with last night who over voice was like, I'm playing in PSVR and it's amazing. So
did you say back, I'm using tilt controls?
I did not turn my voice chat on. I remained in Discord voice.
If you're going true Mario Kart style, you don't need voice chat.
Yeah. Well, so on that, I'll say so I don't talk about this game for a half hour, the multiplayer is an experience in a sense of it's the first time in a while with a game where I have felt like I need to learn a new skill set. I've played a lot of space sims in the past, but never gotten that into them in multiplayer. So I don't really have any context for how good I am at them. And I still don't really, because the game has such a wide range of skill levels right now that it's hard. I've had games where I did okay and games where I did very poorly. At first I found it frustrating, but then I just accepted that I played with two other friends last night on Discord, and we were talking, and just kind of like, you just kind of have to accept that you're learning a new skill set because it's really, really hard. And you will die in ways that are like, I don't know what happened. Something started beeping and then I exploded. And there's a lot of that early on while you're learning to play it. There are two modes in the game. There's a dogfight mode, which is a 5v5 dogfight, which at first I was kind of down on, but it's really fun. It's the perfect number of ships. There's no objectives in it other than to defeat the other team, and you have to get to 30 kills, and it's tight, feels good. And then there's this fleet battles mode, which is kind of like a attack and defend, push and pull, where you are trying to kill enemy ships, like capital ships, to eventually get to an enemy big capital ship. And it seems really cool. And there's like some creeps flying around too, like just AI, basic AI. They do a good job with, like, if you're playing the Empire in that mode, they use like Imperial Raiders, which is a kind of ship that doesn't show up in the movies. So it's really cool the way they kind of lean on some more expanded universe stuff like that. And it feels really good to fight that stuff. I will say my friends and I we can't beat the AI on easy in the fleet battles mode. We're trying to figure out how to play it effectively, because I think we ended up winning one of them finally last night. But we got carried by the two people. It runs into an issue of like, there's a point at which it will say assault the enemy Star Destroyer if you're playing as New Republic. And it's like, oh, okay. But it's like a real scaled Star Destroyer, and it's just bristling with guns, and you fly like towards it, and then you get blown up. And we haven't yet figured out how you're supposed to fly at a Star Destroyer and get close to it, like literally close enough to shoot at it, without it blowing you apart. So
I mean, you just got to watch the start of The Last Jedi.
So one thing that's interesting, I know that's a joke, but something I want to touch on, and it's because of the fact that they're T65s. They have not put T70 X-Wings in, but you can't do any of that shit that you can do that like Poe does at all in an X-Wing in this game, because they are like clunky and slow and not particularly, they're like well armored and armed, but they just don't fly very fast or maneuver very fast. So it is funny, I think, if you're not like, I can look at it and go, well, of course not, because they're T65s, they're not T70s. But if you just like watched like The Last Jedi and were like, man, I love Poe, I want to fly an X-Wing too, it would it's not the feeling that you're going to get from it. Which is kind of to my last point. They did a phenomenal job making the ships feel very different. At first, I was a little bummed that it only had 8 ships in it. But having played it now, it's 8 extremely distinct ships, which I think makes up for the fact that the actual ship count is a little low. And each one of they've smartly managed their progression systems, or implemented their progression system where you have one overall level that goes up as you play the game. You get experience points from playing against AI or people. And as your level goes up, you get a currency that you use to unlock ship upgrades, of which there are like dozens. And we're talking upgrades, different kinds of primary weapons, different secondary stuff, different hulls, different shields, different engines. And then you get a currency that unlocks cosmetics, and there's no microtransactions or anything. You just save up the currency, and it's not a big grind. You can get one of the like legendary tier skins after playing for a few hours. So the progression and stuff is really smart. They have daily challenges that you do that say like, oh, get kills in an X-Wing, but it doesn't do the thing where you have to play a TIE fighter a bunch to unlock TIE fighter stuff. You can play as a A-Wing because you like the way it feels, and then spend your unlocks on TIE fighter upgrades, which I think works really well because it allows you to experiment with the different ships as much as you want and kind of go, so for me, I was like, I like X-Wings, but they don't feel maneuverable at all. So I grabbed an engine upgrade that lowers your top speed but makes you more maneuverable, and it made me like flying it a little bit more. You can totally do that. I did a thing with the A-Wing because I love the way the A-Wing pilots, and the basic loadout for the A-Wing is very much an interceptor like fighter killer. So I took upgrades to make it more of a like skirmisher against the lighter capital ships, and it worked. I became like a really powerful I could do these like strafing runs on capital ships where they couldn't hit me because I was so fast, but I was unleashing like 5 or 6 barrage rockets and close range blaster fire that like burst fired, and then zipping out and getting out of range. And it's really cool the degree to which that stuff works and how much you can customize the ships.
Nice. How successful has the like diverting your shields and all that stuff felt? Like,
it matters.
I'm getting shot from behind. I need to pull thrusters down and shields in the back or whatever.
That's actually the big reason that I want them to get Hota's Dead Zone stuff fixed, and I'm excited to hear that someone maybe found a way to help with that, because my Hotas has like, between my throttle and my stick, it has like 20 buttons at least. And many of those buttons are like hat style things where they're like directional buttons. And I would like to have access to those, because managing flying, managing your targeting, which is a huge thing, managing your power, and managing where your shields are things you basically are doing simultaneously, which is why it's so hard. It's not just that maneuvering is challenging, it certainly is, but it's really the systems management that is the most challenging thing, because it matters a lot. Basically, if you put all of your power into weapons, you can fire in perpetuity. If you put it all into shields or engines, you can only fire a few shots before you run out of energy and have to let it recharge. So you basically have to like shunt power to engines to get to maneuver and get in position behind an enemy, and then kick power to weapons so that you can really maximize like your opportunity where you're behind them. And then as soon as you start taking hits, you have to recognize where those hits are coming from and shunt your shields either forward or backward based on where the enemy is, and then probably kick power over to shields to get them to regen faster. And then on top of that, if you take hull damage and you've outfitted yourself with an R2 or like the Imperials also have a hull repair, you have to hit the button to repair your hull too. And so it's all very chaotic and hectic and fast paced. Sorry about that. Had to dive away. I'm gonna mark that time. But yeah, that stuff all matters a lot, and I think that is what makes it feel the most challenging. And so I think if you are interested in playing it, you have to go into it with the understanding that you're going to feel like you're bad at it for a bit.
All right. Well, yeah, Star Wars, they keep making those games. I wonder how long EA will keep exclusivity. Did they get like a renewal on that?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if that gets broken out. Microsoft buys exclusive rights to the Star Wars game licenses.
People shit on EA's handling of Star Wars, and I understand it, but I don't know. Fallen Order is really good. Battlefront 2 became really good after they put it out, and it was a disaster. This game is pretty good.
Star Wars Connect was pretty amazing.
I think the biggest thing, at least for me, with EA is there's only so many things that EA is going to have on the burner. And if they were willing to do like not as extreme as like what Warhammer has, where anyone is just like, oh, we're going to make a Warhammer game. We're making a Warhammer game. But if it was spread out more and you had more variety in the studios and stuff, that would be obviously much more ideal. But
I mean, I don't believe in in my perfect utopia, anyone can make anything, right? So like I would much prefer a world where it's more like the way that Games Workshop handles the Warhammer license, because it doesn't really hurt anyone if there are bad games, you know. It doesn't hurt the integrity of the franchise or whatever if there's bad stuff related to it. The final fucking movie in the franchise is really bad, so like no game that they're gonna make is gonna give me worse feelings than watching that movie. Yeah, I wish there was more stuff for sure. And I think that the biggest issue is that there are just gaps in, like, there should be an Uncharted-ish, like, you're a smuggler running around Coruscant shooting a blaster pistol. That game should exist, and it's insane that it doesn't exist yet.
I mean, that was
13.
basically, yeah. I mean,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, kind of like what they made with was the Fallen Order. Like it was like a mix of things, but it had like some Uncharted in there. But yeah,
it did. But a Fallen Order is still is more of a Jedi, like
Dark Souls
lightsaber fighting game that has some Dark Souls in it. I'm talking about like there should be a third person shooter in that. 1313 should have come out, or Amy Hennig's game should have come out. You know, that's more what I'm getting at. There should be. Yeah,
they cancel so much stuff there.
There should be a Star Wars RPG that exists right now. It's wild that there is not a KOTOR. It doesn't even have to be like KOTOR, but that there is not a game like KOTOR to some extent.
Yeah.
Now,
what
if it was a free to play Star Wars game with gacha mechanics?
That exists. There's like 3 of those. So
and it was an open
and
world.
I do not like
RPG.
any of them.
They're all bad.
Played all of them.
They're all bad.
And it was
Galaxy
kind of like
Heroes
Breath
is
of the
okay.
Wild.
What if it had anime girls?
Now I'm in.
Had anime Chewbacca.
Oh.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, that technically exists too. There is Star Wars. There is Star Wars anime stuff. There is not a Star Wars anime that I'm aware of that's just
who is the Timmy of Star Wars? Is it Anakin?
Oh, no, because Timmy, the only thing Timmy does is stand on that bridge. So it's got to be somebody who doesn't really do much.
Would you call that bridge the high ground? If so, I know who's on it.
It's funny you say that because there's a very funny meme, Genshin Impact meme, which is what we're going to talk about next. There's a character in it that at one point she goes, "We need to go to the high ground," and I had that thought, and I went to the subreddit, which is awful. You shouldn't go to that subreddit. It's really terrible. The people there are not great. But
I'm assuming it's all memes. Like that,
it's mostly memes, and many of them are funny, including the one that I'm referencing, which was then it's like Obi-Wan's face, and it's like something like happiness intensifies or whatever. But there's a lot of shitty memes on there that are like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, there's no report button here. Well, guess I won't be back here. But yeah, Genshin Impact has anime girls, although I appreciate that they're not like icky anime girls, which is part of why I was like, okay, I can get into this, because a lot of gachas are like gross. And it has anime boys, and it has anime dragons, or one anime dragon at least. Yeah. Yeah. And
this is an anime gacha game.
It's really good.
How fuckable is this dragon?
I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like around an 8 or 8.5.
Okay, that's pretty.
It's a very so when you say fuckable, do you mean like how attractive is the dragon, or how logistically possible it would be?
I want like a 5-point scale, like feasibility, attractiveness, sensuality.
Like in the game, is there a mechanic wherein you can romance the dragon?
No.
Like a Saints Row 4, go up and push the button.
If this is not just an appearance thing, then it's got to be like a 2.5, mainly because this is an enormous dragon. Like,
okay.
It carries, at one point it carries like 6 people on its back, and it could fit like another 15 to 20. Yeah.
How sensual is this dragon?
I'd say like a 6 out of 10, probably. It's reasonably sensual. It's an old dragon, and it's like really angry. Yeah, and when you first meet them, they're very angry, and like have that kind of like sensual rage thing going on. They tried to destroy an entire city. And then you have to, and I think it's he's crying a lot, and you have to get his tears and purify them, and then you use that to repair the holy lyre de Hermel, and then Venti can play the lyre to calm
Bechamel.
Venti can play the lyre to calm the dragon down, but you still got to do a Panzer Dragon style fight against him.
I think I've just been like activated.
Yeah. So this game, it's funny because all week I've been like, how am I going to talk about this game on the podcast? And then I like didn't practice, but I came up with like, oh, these are the points I want to hit, and in this order, and that's out the window. But for anyone still listening who has not turned this podcast off yet, Genshin Impact is a open world action adventure RPG with gacha mechanics.
Free to play.
What's a gacha mechanic, Pat?
So gacha mechanic, the word gacha is based on gachapon, which is like Japanese capsule toys. So you turn
the shit, you go to the supermarket, you put a quarter in, you turn the thing, and then a little thing pops out.
You crank it, and you get a prize,
and then a prize.
And that prize is a dragon.
But it's like also there's an element of randomness to it too.
Yes.
And historically, gachas have been like kind of all over mobile space. Like that Fire Emblem game was a gacha. Like it's you roll characters, you get like maybe a 5-star character versus a 1-star character.
Is it like all the Madden like Ultimate Team stuff? That's gacha stuff, isn't it?
Or the
I've never engaged with it, so I don't know what it actually looks like. But
in some ways, Madden is structured more like a card game because you like open a pack of cards.
Yeah,
but it's all just different animations for the same shit. Like in some ways, Gachapon is not that dissimilar from Magic the Gathering. Like you're buying like random draws.
Overwatch for that matter.
Yes, although Overwatch doesn't have character strength tied to the mechanic, but yeah, certainly from like a random box opening thing for sure.
Yeah.
The thing that is interesting, or the thing that has been the case with most gacha games, in my opinion, is they're bad. Like the one that I connected with a little bit is Grand Blue Fantasy earlier this year, which I found enjoyable as a visual novel. It's good. The art is beautiful. The writing's pretty good. The thing that ultimately kind of made me fall off with it after a pretty significant amount of time and no money invested is the gacha mechanic is fun because it's fun to open random packs of characters. But in Grand Blue, you can get like a really fucking cool character and a really cool looking sword. But in the end, you're only really using them in like a JRPG style battle that happens like a couple times per chapter. So I just didn't feel like much of a connection. I felt a connection to the characters through the writing, but I didn't feel much of a connection to the gacha characters or the equipment that I was pulling, which is such a huge part of the game. And you spend so much time managing your loadouts and then they don't come into play very often. So Genshin Impact is the opposite end of that spectrum. It's on PS4, PC, and mobile right now. The PS4 version, everything can cross-play with each other. Although it's primarily a single player game, you don't even unlock co-op until like 12 hours in. And then at that point, it's like you can co-op, but there doesn't seem to be a significant advantage at this point where I'm at in the game. It's just if you want to run around with your friends. And when you do co-op, you only advance the story and quest lines in the host's world. If you are co-oping in, you take all the rewards that you get and stuff that you get back. So you progress your characters when you join someone else's world, but you can't like play through the story together. So it's clearly designed for high level end game stuff that you're going to want to co-op for that are like dungeon type content. So don't go into it thinking it's a Destiny, because it's not really a multiplayer focused thing. You're probably going to need to play for 100 hours before the co-op even really becomes relevant. But anyway,
are they treating it like a service game, or they're adding stuff over time? I assume, right?
It will be a service. It is a service game for sure.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, there'll be more co-op stuff in time to come.
Based on how popular, and maybe it'll be a flash in the pan, but based on how popular it seems right now, I suspect that they will be able to make content for it for quite a while.
I have never seen a single moment in a game shared on social media as much as fucking Timmy.
I've barely seen it.
Pigeons.
So we'll get to Timmy and the Pigeons, which is the name of my new Ramones cover band. The structure of the game, so it's on these three platforms. They all cross-play, but PS4 it doesn't have cross-account, like cross-save stuff. So if you start on PS4, you're playing on PS4. People are saying they're going to add that, but I haven't found anywhere where they have said themselves that they're going to add that. So I don't know that will ever happen. But if you play on PC and mobile, the accounts talk to each other. You can log in on your phone or play it on the PC. Interestingly, most of the time, I think this is a really important thing that a lot of people that I know that I've tried to sell this game to aren't grasping. This is not a mobile game ported to PC. It is clearly a PC developed game that they scrunched down to run on phones. And even on an iPhone Pro Max that I have from last year, it's kind of a little chunky on phones. So it's clearly more of like I'm playing it on PC primarily, and I've spent like 20 to 25 hours with the game so far this week, and it has been on PC. So I log in on my phone,
kind of like PUBG in that way, in a way.
Yeah, I log in on my phone sometimes when I'm in bed to like, I need to, because it has the like classic. It's a billion mechanics, and one of them is the send a character out for 12 hours and they go and collect resources thing. And so like last night I saw a push notification that something was ready to pick up, and so I logged in real quick to go grab that, because it's totally playable on phones. It's not like it doesn't feel terrible to play on phones, but it's definitely like virtual stick and virtual buttons for doing things, right. Which is not fun. And
because I don't think we've mentioned it, it's basically like Breath of the Wild, right? Like it's in terms of how you're controlling it, etc.
Yeah, yes, generally yes. I mean, it's a action adventure RPG, which gets to my point about Grand Blue versus this game and why I'm finding this game much more engaging, even from a gacha perspective, is you are directly controlling a character and moving around a really big open world space that at a surface level resembles Breath of the Wild. It has a sort of similar pastel-y anime art style. It's a little more anime than Breath of the Wild. The characters are much more like anime inspired, but it's very beautiful. The environments are gorgeous looking, super stylized. And when you do the combat, so you're kind of, on PC, I'm playing on PC with mouse and keyboard because I like that control layout. And so I'm WASDing to run around the world, and then you get into combat and it's an action game. Like you're mashing an attack button, which is true. And at first it feels like the combat's going to just be super mashy, but very quickly it turns into a game where your characters have a basic attack string that all have a unique effect at the end. They have a hold attack where if you hold the button down, they do something specific. And then they have a basic power that's on a cooldown that you can just use or hold. And then they also have an ultimate ability that you charge up with like orbs, like power orbs. And then that has a big effect. Each of them has...
That just makes me think it's going to show up at GDQ.
Each of the characters has an elemental affinity, and all of the elements combine in different ways. The elements are like status effects, kind of. You like put like fire on an enemy, and then if you put fire on an enemy and then do a wind attack, then it'll cause a like fire swirl. So like I have their main character has a tornado that they do for their ultimate. So if there's like some burning grass or a character that's on fire and you do the tornado, it turns it into like a flaming tornado, and then it hits everyone it hits gets put on fire. So it's a lot of those kind of effects. The water effect is called wet. So you make people wet, which it's quite the time for that. I don't think it's intended as reference.
Stay wet, wizards.
God.
The character that I have that is water affinity is the like, what do they call her? The Duchess or something? Not a Duchess, but she basically deaconess, I think is what they call her, of the church in the city. And she makes people wet, that's for sure. She's actually very conservatively dressed in like a really pretty dress that is like ankle length. So
does she live anywhere? Like, are there lots of ovens where she lives? Because then she could be the Duchess of Ovens, and
no
Dutch oven.
Yeah,
oven under the blankets.
Yes, I understand where you're going. So far there hasn't been a lot of farting.
Hey, it's a service game. They can always add it.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, she like makes somebody wet, and then I switch to Lisa, who's like they're kind of Lisa's really cool, but she reminds me of the character from Fire Emblem, the like sexy teacher that is flirting with people all the time.
What is her?
God, I keep almost calling her Minfilia, but that's from Final Fantasy.
But that character,
boobs, like I don't know.
Lisa's kind of like that character, but like 10 years earlier before she took a job as a professor. And so you go from the
Manuela,
yeah. You go from the deaconess. Deaconess makes somebody wet. You switch to Lisa, and she's an electric character. So then she uses her ability, and then they're like electrocuted and they take damage over time. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. You switch instantly. There's only like a 1.5 second cooldown on the switch. So you can your character switching all the time, doing combos, switching mid combo, firing off an ability. It feels really satisfying. It takes like 3 or 4 hours of play before you get to that point. Before that, it just feels like you're slamming the attack button all the time, which is boring. But I would make the argument that a game like Final Fantasy 14, which is also fantastic, for the first like 10 hours of that game, when you get into fights, you push the one key and watch animations play for like 2 minutes, depending on your class. There's certainly classes that are more active, but the character that I was playing last in Final Fantasy 14 had like 3 abilities, and 2 of them were on like a 90-second cooldown. So it's as engaging as any kind of, the combat quickly ramps up, and early on it's as engaging as any kind of MMO style game, even though this isn't an MMO. But the world exploration is where it draws most of the Breath of the Wild comparisons, because it has a Korok equivalent where there are these spirits and you follow them to a place and a chest pops up or something. It has statues that you give little collectibles you find around in the environment too, and it increases your stamina. You can climb any surface using stamina. There is no it's raining, so your stamina goes down more mechanic, thankfully. And then there are no breakable weapons, because the weapons and characters come out of the gacha system, which you could probably play all of the story content in this game with weapons you get from the free initial draws and characters that you get for free. But there is certainly a deep dark hole to go down trying to get the weapons, because one, unlike Grand Blue, they look rad as fuck on your character. So, and you actually see them and use them. So there's that part. And then each weapon has a unique effect that it does. So it has its stats, but then also it'll be like, oh, at the end of your combo string, this weapon deals 5 damage to you, but it also then does an AoE attack where it hits everybody around you or something.
Sorry, so does 5 damage to you, meaning your own character?
I haven't seen one that does that specifically, but I've seen similar things to that deals like stamina damage or hits you. And so then to level those things up, you're feeding the weapons other weapons. Then when you feed the weapons, the weapon number goes up, and then you hit a certain point and you need materials to enhance it to the next rank. To get the materials, you have to do specific dungeon content, which is repeatable, but it takes up a stamina system to do those dungeons. So
and then Kenny Omega shows up, and then you feed his card to another one.
I hope you could feed. It would be cool if I could feed Kenny Omega to Barbara. She would.
I have no context for that, but I want
it. But yeah, so it's such a weird game, because that whole aspect of it is not a thing you really need to engage with if you just want to play it to see the story and to see and the story is interesting because it is very tropey. It is very much adventure anime. I just think it has really good writing. So the characters in it are all just archetypical. Oh, this is the authority figure with a heart of gold. That's really that's like really just, and this is the like sexy, like flirty character, and this is the roguish male character, and this is the one who doesn't like to play by the rules. And like your character, you have a character named Paimon who's with you, who's caused a lot of discourse because she's kind of like your Navi equivalent. I like her a lot. A lot of people don't like her because she is very much the like fairy archetype where she follows you around and talks for you. I saw one person that I follow who's in Games Press was just saying like, oh my fucking God, I hate Paimon so much. I really hope she's just a tutorial character. And I got news for that person. She's in the whole game and she talks all the time. And she has a like, Paimon thinks blah, 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 blah kind of voice that some people are not going to jive with.
Yeah. That's...
I like her. There's early on, a character asks you who the fairy is, and you can say we're friends or she's an emergency food source. So it's got a lot of that kind of clever writing in it. There's a quest line with a chef lady, and you have to help her win a cooking competition. Like, it's got a lot of good stuff.
With that in mind, thinking about the clever writing and stuff. So this is not a North American developed game. It's localized, right? Like, is it Japanese developed or Chinese?
It's Chinese.
Okay. So whatever, I forget the name of the studio. Like
MiHoYo is the name of the studio.
There we go. I was thinking like Vohayo, like the Twitch emoji, but yeah. MiHoYo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're based out of Shanghai. I see.
Yeah. Cool. It's clearly deeply influenced by Japanese game development and culture and anime and stuff. They're like little tagline that says MiHoYo and then Teko Taku save the world underneath their name.
Weird.
So yeah, but I don't know. We don't have to drag on too much longer about it. But I think it's really, really fun, and I think it's a huge surprise to me. I like it more the more I play it. I spent about 20 hours with, like I said, 20 to 25 hours or so, and I have finished most of the content, the questing content in the first region that you're in. So now the game has breadcrumbed me to go to the kind of Chinese inspired region called Liyue. It does a sort of avatar thing where the Mondstadt, the first region you're in, is like the wind region, and it has a wind god, and and it's a city of freedom and all this stuff. And like no one, the god just kind of disappeared because he doesn't really like to govern, because he believes in just letting them do whatever.
Is there a lake that they bring people to, and then they say like government conspiracies aren't a thing?
Not quite. Okay. There are government conspiracies, although Mondstadt itself is kind of like a libertarian paradise. There's not really a centralized ruler. So not libertarian paradise in the awful American libertarian way, more in the nobody really rules. And because it's an anime thing, it just works out that way and everyone's happy, which is not how it works in real life when that happens. But the Liyue, the god there, it's like a stone region, and the god there once a year descends from the heavens to give his like predictions for the next year, and then the people basically have to work their asses off to make sure the predictions come true. So it's really cool the way that the different regions are themed differently. When you go to a new region, everything sounds different. Like all the music is different, which this game has. I've been listening to the music out of game a lot because it's spectacular. And all of this still is one shared world. It's not like a loading screen. It's not like you're hitting a new place on a menu. You just walk there. And so the sort of service game aspect is obviously they'll add new characters and new weapons for you to gacha, because of course. But more than that, they're adding. There's 7. They call it the 7 kingdoms. Each of the 7 archons, the gods, have a kingdom. And currently in the game, there is the starting one, Mondstadt and Liyue. They haven't added any of the other ones yet. So all of that stuff is set to come down the road. They've started talking about the Snechnaya, which is the ice kingdom. And it's like anime Russia. And it's ruled by the Tsarista. And she's like the god of frost.
Tsarista.
Yes. Wow. And they have been actively conspiring in Mondstadt to try to fuck things up there. If you read the manga, which is very surprisingly good for a marketing thing, and I actually recommend people do it if they want to play the game, because it gives you a lot of context. They had the Fatui are from Snechnaya, and the Fatui like kidnap children and do experiments on them and then make them fight in an arena. So it's got some wild shit in there. And it's all wrapped up in a game that's really fun to play. It's really relaxing, and just like there's no friction. Like it has some weird similarities to Avengers in the way that the combat is a game of combat where you like slam buttons and dodge attacks and then you use abilities. But whereas Avengers constantly feels to me like it's like it almost like it wants you to like stop playing. Like it's very like, okay, you got to load in and now you got to do the fights, which are fun, but now you got to fly to another fight. Genshin Impact is a lot more frictionless. It just kind of goes and feels good all the time. And right now they're in the honeymoon period where they're like sending you free polls every day. And I have put a little bit of money into it to get a couple of like the coin doubler kind of type things. But I feel like I'm getting polls all the time with very little investment, and that's going to dry up in like a month. So we'll see how it feels at that point. But right now it feels like it's just very much like we're having fun, playing through content, getting characters and stuff. And I at least recommend giving it a shot to anybody who likes games like Breath of the Wild, because it's, and if you're somebody who wanted to like Breath of the Wild, but didn't because it was systems light, this is a good one to try out because it has a lot more mechanics to it than Breath of the Wild does from a like combat perspective and progression perspective. And I think that's appealing to some people. Breath of the Wild feels kind of directionless at times, and this definitely does not. This is like you have a quest to go to this place on the map, and then you'll do a dialogue, and then you'll do some fights.
Interesting. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna play that. Allison, you gonna dive into Genshin Impact?
I'm kind of interested. I don't know how much time I'd play it because I feel like a lot of it interests me, but the whole free to play aspect is the thing that kind of keeps me away from that, if that makes sense. But I mean, that's also the reason why I'm like, oh, maybe I could just download it and give it a shot. So
I really think anyone who has a passing, I mean, unless you actively are like, I don't like games where you run around an open world and push a button to attack, unless you're like very much like, no, I only like strategy games and shooters or something, then sure, it's probably not for you. But I think anybody who, it's not enough like Breath of the Wild that if you don't like Breath of the Wild, you're not going to like it. So I think anybody who likes open world action RPGs should at least give it a download and try it, because it doesn't ask that much of you to like, you can spend 5 minutes with it and go, oh, I hate everything about the writing and the way this feels to control. I'm not going to play this anymore. And it's not even really a very big game to download. So on PC, it's like 20 gigabytes or something. So it shouldn't hammer a data cap too hard.
I think the big thing for me is like with gacha stuff, I want characters that I know. Yeah. So like I put months into like Dragon Ball Legends, the Dragon Ball fighting gacha game, and like stuff like that. Like I was looking for like a One Piece gacha or something to play, but also if you come into a gacha game late, it just kind of sucks. Cause
see, that's kind of where I'm at like right now too, is that I'm like, if I want to get into this game, I want to get into it now versus like in a year. So yeah.
Oh, sorry. I would say that for me, I had the same concern about like, I don't know these characters. Why would I care about getting them? Reading the manga helped with that. So it's like I came in kind of knowing some of the characters and I was like, man, I hope I can get Diluc at some point. And he's in a gacha. But more than that, they give you characters to fill out your party, so you don't never need the gacha characters. So you don't have to care about the polls really. You can just kind of play it as like and they do a really good job of introducing characters through the story that are gacha characters. So you go, wow, I really like that character. It would be cool to have them around all the time. So it does a good job with that stuff. Yeah. I will say that is one reason to not play it, is if you have self-control issues or any kind of like concern with gambling, that's for any gacha game is a good reason to stay away if you're worried you'll dump too much money into it. They don't really do a lot. They don't push you to spend money on it much. It's more like, hey, this is what's in this banner for this month. It doesn't say like, it never pops up with things saying, hey, you should buy a poll. That never, ever happens. It is always just, you can push F3 and see the banners and there's a shop that you can buy currency in. Although I will say, whatever platform you're going to play on primarily, I would install it and launch it there first. I launched it on my phone first because I was having trouble downloading the PC client, and now I have to make all purchases on my phone. It won't let me buy stuff in the PC client. It says you have to use the device you registered.
You know, like in a way, that's actually pretty good, because that means like your account can't be compromised and stuff like that. So that's actually pretty cool.
I prefer it because it's locked up behind my Apple account, which is, Apple sucks in a lot of ways, but one way that they do not suck is user security. So I don't mind having to launch the app real quick if I want to buy gems. And it's also a nice way to say, I'm not just going to like open the store after I've had a few beers and click the $5 buy button, because I would have to open my phone and then launch the app there and log out of it on PC. And then maybe you have to update your phone, right? You have to update the app on your phone, and because it's free to play, it's a gacha game. The update process is a nightmare. It's a decent barrier. You can, I think, purchase. You might be able to purchase stuff through their website, not in the game without the phone. by doing like a 2FA thing. But anyway, it's good. You should try it if you like open world RPGs.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty good one of those gotcha aside.
Well, we were talking just before about Star Wars and RPGs, and what if there was a Star Wars RPG now? And I am playing something very akin to a Star Wars RPG, but it's not Star Wars. It's Final Fantasy 12.
There's no space in Final Fantasy 12.
No, but there are sky pirates. And that's basically just a Han Solo. Yeah, so I am actually further in Final Fantasy 12 than I have ever been now, and I'm still like at the very beginning of the game. When I rented it, I got stuck at like the first time there's like a named judge. Like you fight like some Judge A and Judge B, who were just like fodder enemies basically. But there was like a yeah, it was a big boss, and it was Judge, I don't know, Grease or something, and I just couldn't beat him for whatever reason. He's not hard.
Judge Dredd.
No, that's impossible. I would not be able to beat Judge Dredd.
No one can defeat Judge Dredd.
I'm gonna be the judge.
But so far, it's been very like A New Hope. Got your orphan, got your sky pirates, got the old grizzled veteran. You got the princess you got to save. It's all very much in that they're doing Star Wars.
Yeah, you are not the first person I've heard say that Final Fantasy 12 is basically Star Wars.
Do I need to play this game now?
Like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's fine so far. I don't know why. I don't know why I bought this game. I think I mentioned last week. It was on sale, and I was just like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. People seem to really like it. And the fast forward mechanic is a godsend. I'm playing this game basically entirely at 2x speed,
which is
very handy because there's a lot of walking around like dungeons and just like, okay, I gotta run through this place. There's no random combat in this game. This is where they did away with it, and you're not even like going into like separate battles. It's basically like an MMO. So you just like run up and you're like, okay, attack. Because even like stuff like 13, which didn't have random battles, still had like it broke out into a separate battle screen and stuff. And then there's like I think the system is so complicated and like over the top, like the Gambit system, where you're setting up all your characters to like attack like with their individual like plans for each fight. So you're like, okay, if anyone gets below 30% health, I want you to cast heal. And then if you're not casting heal, then you should like, go down this list, like, okay, attack enemies that have this with this attack. And if you're not doing that, then attack enemies just like normally.
Yeah. You basically program your whole party.
Yeah. And it's very overwhelming. And you have to buy, so you're buying all your moves. So you've got the license board where you like unlock the ability to use moves, but then you have to go to a vendor and be like, yo, give me that Cura. And then you just have Cura in your party. You're not like leveling up and unlocking it. Like you're not, learning the spell. You have to buy the spell and like buy all the items. And you're like, okay, I got to level up my accessories abilities so I can equip like a Tourmaline bangle or whatever, Tourmaline bangle. But you can skip over like on the license board. Every spot takes up like, license points. So you're like, oh, well, I don't have any of the things in like sword 2, but I've got a sword that is in sword 3. So I can just skip sword 2 and unlock sword 3. So that's interesting. And there's so many jobs, and it's
a cool game. But the thing that I always ran into the few times I've tried to play it, I've played it for like 10 hours once. It's as far as I've gotten and this is a bad criticism, so I'm not really being critical. It's more just my issue with getting into it is when you look at a game like The Witcher 3, that's going to take you a long time to finish. There really aren't verbs in The Witcher 3 that are that unique to that game. It just deploys existing concepts really well. There's the alchemy and there's the science, but really, I mean, if you've done crafting and cooking in games before, the alchemy is you don't have to learn a bunch of new skills to play it. You can just kind of engage with it.
Yeah.
If you've played open world action RPGs, you can just kind of engage with it. The problem with stuff like Final Fantasy 12 is it is a finite game. And like on the other side of that, there's something like FF14, right? That's a complex game, tons of stuff going on, but it's also an ongoing story. So if you put the time in to learn it, you know that you're going to have like years of content to play. The problem with something like Final Fantasy 12 is it's so complex and there's so much stuff to understand, and you're going to master it and then you're going to finish the game and you're done now. So it's like if Dark Souls never had sequels or like other Souls games happened. Cause you're learning this skill set and then it's kind of like you've mastered it and it's done. And obviously that's a bad criticism because it's cool that it has a bunch of unique complex systems. That's awesome. Yeah. But it's always been a barrier for me to get into it and other games that have that similar issue where I don't want to learn all these systems to play a 60-hour story and then be done with the game because I'm not going to play the game again after that. Right. So I that's been a long time struggle I've had with a lot of different JRPGs.
There's also like a lot of, I don't know why I'm leveling up. Like, I'm not sure what the benefit of that is. Like, why am I level 14? Because like license points are independent of that. And then your health is independent of that, I think, unless you're getting like health from your license board and from your levels. There's so much going on. I don't really know. I wasn't paying attention for like the first like couple hours because I was like, I've played this before, like, you know, when it came out on the PS2. And now I'm past where I got stuck before, and because I only ever rented, I never owned it. And so now I'm like, okay, now I'm paying attention, and I'm crossing this like giant sand sea on these like kind of like oil tanker like things. And I was like, oh, well, there's this whole big area in the middle that I didn't go to, but I could like go forward, or I could just like go off into this zone that I didn't touch because it looks real big. And I went in, and then there was this big like yellow orb that just kind of floated along. I was like, oh, guess I'll fight it. And then I was just like, zero damage. Oh, I'm dead. And my save is like 45 minutes ago or whatever.
That sucks.
Yeah. Okay, great. I guess I won't do that again.
Yeah. Some of that stuff's really cool, but it's just, it's a tough, like, how much do you want to invest in? Yeah. Like I've heard people say the story is good, but it's not the, like, people don't talk about it in like hushed tones, you know. It's hard for me to want to invest that much time into learning.
Our own Sam Harrison says it is his favorite Final Fantasy game. I believe he says it is the best Final Fantasy game. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of people have gotten a lot more fond of it, especially with the newer version and as time goes on. Yeah.
The fast forward makes it really good. Yeah. And the fast forward makes it really good. I guess the job system that they took from the Japanese international version is much better because you can assign anyone to any job, but obviously different people have like different skills. So like some people have higher combo speeds, and some people have lower health and higher mana pools by default. So you want to take that into account. So I'm just using a guide for that stuff because I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to troubleshoot myself.
It seems like the kind of thing I could see it being like, well, it's April. I didn't really get into any of the big March releases. It's going to be a month or two at least before another big game comes out. Sure, I'm going to try this. And the problem is that I have like 30 or 40 games like that sitting in my Steam library already. So
this is not a game I think anyone needs to run out and play, but it is, like I said, it's Star Wars.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about it makes me go like, that sounds cool. I would like to play that someday. But I also know that the odds that I'll actually get to it and finish it, like I could buy it right now and play it for 4 hours tonight. Yeah. But will I play it for... Yeah, exactly.
Will you play it for 80 hours?
Yeah.
They did fix what I think is one of the stupidest things I have ever heard about like a Final Fantasy game, and this kind of is reminiscent of the issues you were talking about with one of the Trails games, where you missed like a quest, you didn't talk to someone in like a pub in like a 5-minute window, and then you can't just get one of the best weapons in the game or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Trails games are rotten. The early Trails games are rotten with that shit. It's hilarious, actually.
In Final Fantasy 12, in the original, there were certain chests throughout the game that you could not open. If you opened a single one of these chests, you could not get like the best weapon in the game. And they're not marked in any way. They're just scattered about. And they did away with that in the Zodiac Age. I don't know if it was the international version too, but at least in this new version, they have like alternate ways.
I understand the impetus to, like, when I was complaining about it in Trails, this has a thing where there's like a series of books you have to collect, and you get the first 2 volumes you have a chance to buy in the second chapter, but otherwise you get one chance to talk to specific background NPCs that are just milling about in random places, and they're available. Like the third volume is like you're in a bar at one point talking to a story character, and there's a character in the background sitting at the bar, and if you don't talk to that character before you leave the bar, you won't get the volume, and you can't just walk back inside and get it. If you walk back inside, he's gone. And if you don't talk to him in that moment, you can't get the best weapons in the game for 2 characters. And there are 8 volumes of this thing, and they're all like that. And like, I'm not trying to dunk on Sam because I love Sam, but Sam was like, well, it's a game where you have to talk to everyone. And I was like, fuck that. That is so not.
I am refusing to talk to everybody in Final Fantasy 12.
Well, I mean, they're
just running by, and there's all these people, and they all have like little things like, oh, you can talk to this person, and they say nothing of value.
Yeah, that's the thing with Trails, is you can talk to every NPC in Trails in the Sky, which I've been playing, in chunks because I like it a lot. Overall, I like it. But I'm not going to, most of the NPCs, when you talk to them, they're like, it sure is beautiful today. One time I was on the causeway and a monster attacked me. And then I went home and my mother was sad, but I was safe. And so therefore, and they'll tell this story that's like 8 pages of dialogue long, and it doesn't fucking mean anything. And then they'll be like, you can read about it in this book. And that's what you had to do to get the ultimate weapons. And it's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not talking to all these people. They don't have anything interesting to say. The story is interesting and the writing is very good, but it's the NPCs. It's as much as you would get stopping somebody on the street and asking them how they're feeling about the weather in real life. And like, I'm not going to do that in the game.
No, like, Final Fantasy, there are like side quests you can get by talking to people, but
the problem with Trails in the Sky, I won't make this all about this game, but you also transfer your save through Trails in the Sky 1, 2, and 3. So failing to talk to someone at hour 10 in Trails in the Sky 1 will mean that you don't have a thing that you might want in hour 30 of Trails in the Sky chapter, like the third game, which you're now 140 hours into the series, and you go, fuck. It's like, I can't believe they did that.
Is there a save editor you can use?
So I'm going to look into that. I might cheat to get the books that I missed, because I think that system is bullshit, and you don't need the stuff that you miss to see the story. But at the same time, I didn't check the quest board before I left the first region, and you can never go back after that. So I missed a quest. So I can never get the max rank for the like Bracers Guild.
Sometimes.
It's like, I've started keeping a save and playing with a guide so that I don't miss stuff, but that's not really how I want to play that game. I just kind of want to explore it.
I have just linked Trails in the Sky save editor to the group chat.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah. Cool. Well, I'll fuck with that then, because I wouldn't care if you didn't transfer your saves. It's the save transfer from game to game that I'm like, it's cool that this exists, but also you're going to punish me for forgetting to talk to an NPC in the third hour of the first game in the third game. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What are you, a casual?
Apparently.
All right. Yeah. Well, speaking of people who aren't casuals, Allison.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not a casual. Yay.
No, not today.
Not today.
You are the most hardcore gamer on the podcast. I bestow this title upon you.
Oh, I don't know if I like that, but okay, I'll take it.
You are the podcast Billy Mitchell and the most hardcore gamer.
Oh, not again.
No, don't.
I think
That's still so mean.
I think you've you've cleared Hades more times than I have, which makes you hardcore
Twice?
than me. Yeah, I've only cleared it once.
Oh. I was like, it's still twice. Yeah. So
I did think maybe you had cleared it more times than that since I last heard an update from you.
No,
but...
I've gotten so close. Yesterday I was literally one hit away from defeating Hades, like the boss Hades, and then I died, and I yelled very loudly in my apartment.
I would get really upset.
I was like so close to getting that third clear, and I didn't get it. Anyways, I'm still playing a lot of Hades. Huh?
What weapon was it with? What were you rocking?
Bow Cornoct, which is like, I feel like I really love the bow if I have the right loadout, and I had a really good loadout with that bow. Because bow plus chain lightning is like my favorite.
Is it weird to anybody else that the hammer isn't like Hephaestus, and like Hephaestus ain't like, hey, what's up? Here's my hammer.
That there's no awkward dialogue. It's like, so I see you met Aphrodite. That's kind of weird considering we have a history. She's technically my wife, but
that'll be the DLC.
You're not looking at my naked wife, are you?
Well,
Ares
already did. Oh,
that's the every interaction with.
And you're just like, Vices, are you okay? Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm really not. No, but I mean, Daedalus is still cool. I don't know. It is interesting, but yeah, it's Hades is good. I still play it like every day, even after I got that first clear. So I just want that true ending so bad, but it's still really fun to play too.
9 times.
Really?
I thought it was 10 times.
Yeah. I saw 9. Maybe I think the 10th time is the true ending, maybe. But you have to beat it 9 times.
Oh, so nine clears, and then the 10th run is,
I guess.
Yeah, that's how you get the true ending.
I didn't look super deep into it. I just looked up how do you get the true ending, and it said 9 times.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I did too. And then I saw that and I was like, that many?
I thought like once per weapon or something, but no, apparently not.
That's what I was wondering about, which
good. I
actually got remarkably close with the gun yesterday, and I was like, because that's my worst
gun rules.
weapon.
Everyone disagrees on what the best weapon is, and that's one of the best things about the game.
Yeah, well, and the thing is like that's like my least favorite weapon, but it still feels like feasible. Like it still feels like, okay, I have the skills to make it work, and like I still like it. It's just I just don't want like the reload.
I feel a lot more constrained by my boons with the gun. Like the gun and the sword, I'm like, okay, this is going to depend entirely on what boons I get. Where as with for me with the bow or the shield or the spear, I'm like, okay, I can
make this work.
Yeah, my technical skill with this weapon is enough that I can make it up. Whatever boon situation I can make work.
Yeah. Whereas with the gun, it's again, I rely on that chain lightning. Chain lightning carries me through a lot of sketchy encounters in Hades, because that is my fave. But yeah, no, I'm still playing it. I don't know if I have much more to say than it rules, and I love it. And I keep thinking like, oh, am I going to play another game? And then I just play another run of Hades, and I go, okay, no, I'm not.
Nice.
Yeah. I also put like a single hour into Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor for 3DS.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, no, I've heard really good things about it, and I've been really wanting to get into the non-Persona Megami Tensei games. So
there's a lot to like there.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have a few of them because they go on sale on the 3DS eShop all the time, and I'm like, oh, I should buy that. And then so now my 3DS has a lot of SMT games on it, but it's one of those things where I really considering how much I loved Persona 3 and Persona 5, and I still need to go back to do Persona 4, but considering how much I love those games, I really need to get more into the other sub-series and then mainline Shin Megami Tensei. So I'm trying to do that.
I highly recommend playing that SMT3 remaster that's coming out next year.
Yeah, I've heard such good things about Nocturne.
It is
People
really
freak out about Nocturne.
It's really good. It is maybe my favorite SMT game. It has stuff in it that is not the best. Like there's some stereotypes and stuff in it that you kind of have to go in knowing.
Oh, so it's an Atlas game.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this is the stuff that you have to deal with liking Atlas games, where you're like.
I feel like they at least poorly try to couch some of that stuff now. Like they acknowledge that some people don't like it, even if they don't actually do anything materially to fix it. This is before they were even like, wait, people don't like stereotypes and caricatures. So you do have to know that, and maybe they'll make some changes for the remaster. I highly doubt they will, because they sure as fuck didn't fix Catherine. So just
keep wanting to get Catherine full body, but I'm like, no, I can't do that. But I liked the original Catherine a lot. So
I think though Nocturne is very fucking cool and very much worth playing. It's very dark. It is the dark, which says something, that it is the darkest of the SMT games that I have played, and they are already quite dark. So it's like Persona 4, 3, 4, and 5 are very dark, but they're also also you're going around the city with your friends and doing social links. So there's some levity in between the moments of despair. Nocturne is like, actually the apocalypse has happened. Everything's fucked. People are dying. The world is like a shit, and we're basically hanging on by the skin of our teeth, trying to like survive.
World is a fuck. 8 trillion dead cops, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing that's been kind of interesting with Devil Survivor is, story-wise, it's basically like, hey, stuff is going on in Tokyo and we're having a lockdown, and I'm like, oh boy, this is an interesting game to play in this year of 2020. So I'm interested to see where the story goes with that. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and I'm interested, that's one of the reasons that I'm kind of interested in doing a full playing a bunch of different things in this series, is that this is a strategy RPG in addition to being like just an RPG. So it's a lot of the strategy, like the basic battle mechanics feel kind of Fire Emblem-y, and then you get into battle and then it's like, oh no, this is also Megami Tensei. So it's I'm interested to see where that goes as well. But yeah, like I said, I've only put like an hour into it, so.
Well, nice to know I'm not the only one who is shirking new games and instead just playing.
Just to play old RPGs, yeah.
I have encountered the Gippers in Wasteland 3, which is the Reagan worshipping cult, where it's just a bunch of women named Nancy.
Oh God!
They all adopt the name Nancy.
That's pretty good.
Like, I won't go into super detail, but the first thing that I saw happen was they were delivering justice to a communist robot who was like, I'm here to heal the people. And then there's like some cult person who was like, yeah, I took this person and I strung him up on a kite and I just like let him up into the air to sacrifice to our god. And Reagan was like, communist, and blew up the robot, but let the cult guy go. It's like, I'm going to spare you. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to side with those communist robots.
There you go.
And kill the Reagan AI.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's Wasteland 3. It's still the kind of political catharsis I need right now. But Alex, what's up with you?
Oh, not much, man. How are you?
Oh, no.
Oh.
What's up, Pat?
Oh, your audio got really quiet for a split second, but it's fine now. So.
Oh, okay. Hi. No, it's all good. How are you, homie?
Well, you know,
I feel it.
Food.
So, do you want to hear about a game, or do you want to hear about a show that both Allison and I might have some passion for?
Yeah, and that Pat watched.
I did. I watched it yesterday.
And Pat did. Fuck it. Let's jump into that. So, Higurashi is a thing. I think we've talked about it on this podcast.
Oh yeah,
probably
multiple times.
Several times.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely have, because I played.
You played Syconia.
Yes, Syconia.
Was that the one with the kids at the school and the heads and they're at the school and they all have the supercomputers and they're like photoshopping their teacher. Okay, that's
exactly
what I was trying to think of.
I was trying to think of what you were gonna turn that into.
I was gonna say there are kids at the school in Higurashi also.
There are kids at the school in Higurashi. So yeah, like we've talked about that for years, because it's, in terms of anime, it's probably one of the ones that has been most formative for me in terms of stuff I just like now. In terms of all media, specifically the second season and what it does, and the way it just, like, it is a complete deconstruction, and it does so gloriously, and it's not like dumb. It's extremely smart, and every single question you could possibly have about the first season and the start of the second season, it answers, and it's like, oh, huh, that is like the best self-contained piece of media I've ever seen, or read, like if you went for the visual novel side of things. So when it was announced that they were doing a remake, like the first season again with good art, because the first season of Higurashi don't look so hot. It didn't look so hot at the time.
Fine, but it's like it's not necessarily, you know, it's not great. I think it's fine, but it's not like, you don't look at it and go, oh, them graphics.
Yeah, like it was from like what, 2006 or 7, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 2006.
And it was a studio with no budget, so like.
Yeah.
The visuals aren't great. The animation isn't great, but the voice acting and music and everything in the story are what you're there for, and the atmosphere. Right. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're getting that same story and atmosphere and music and all that now with like a good cohesive visual style that's actually kind of like pleasant and modern is awesome. But it's not even just a shot for shot remake of the original. Like,
which is exciting.
Yeah, like there's a couple spots where they're making direct references to the original, like the very first scene with the camera angles that they're using, and like you can see the light on the roof in the background and stuff like that. It's like, yep, that's exactly like it was.
Yeah, like that showed up, and I was like, yep, that's a Higurashi.
Yeah.
And is this more like a Final Fantasy VII remake?
I don't think it's that. It's like it's more of a standard remake, I think. But then there's the post-credit sequence that was like.
That's a little different, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk. Samuel Jackson showed up and he said, I want to talk to you about the Higurashi initiative.
I think I want to watch the original now, because it seemed like I would like to know why the post-credit sequence is interesting, you know? Like, that's sort of, if they're going to keep doing stuff like that, I'm interested to know.
Why both Alex and I were like, oh shit.
Yeah, because when I saw that, I was like, this is definitely weird.
The thing I've really enjoyed is going on communities like Reddit and stuff, and first time watchers who have never seen the original and don't know what's going on, seeing them speculate and come up with theories of what's going on with this character and that character.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Like, we haven't even gotten to the meaty stuff of the show after the first episode. Like, we haven't even got to Oyashiro-sama's curse. We haven't gotten to the festival. We haven't got to any of that stuff.
They briefly mentioned the festival, and I was just like, ho, ho, ho.
Yeah.
You're mentioning the festival. That is important, I think.
Without
I mean, it is. But unless they were completely redoing the thing. But
The entire
coming at it from the perspective of someone who hasn't watched before is I'm definitely like, this is intriguing and interesting, but it's also like, I want to understand why you both like it so much, and I think like, because it's a big story, it's hard to get that from one episode, because it's good. And I would certainly say, like, if you like horror, it seems like it's the thing that very minor spoilers for the first episode. I won't say like the stuff that happens, but the thing that that grabbed me, like, the early stuff is fine. The writing's fine. The characters are charming enough, and cute and stuff. But there's a moment where like things get weird for a second about halfway into the episode. And like, there's a character who's like, says some fucked up stuff, and that I was sort of not surprised by, because it's obviously horror. Like, the opening scene is very violent and disturbing. Then
it sets its tone immediately,
which I like that level of disturbing for sure. I think sometimes I give off that I don't, but I actually, the thing I don't talk about on this podcast very much is I really like horror, and I like some very fucked up horror. So there are some specific triggers that for me have to be handled in a perfect way. But I trust both of you, if they go into some of that stuff, that it is handled in a way that I won't find revolting.
No. So here's something that I found really interesting about this anime. Like, even 10, 15 years ago, again, I don't even remember how long ago it was that I watched it. But
I watched it at least like 13 years ago, because I watched it when I was in high school, and I watched it on old Crunchyroll, back when Crunchyroll was still a pirate website.
When it was illegal, yeah. I think it was the same for me, actually. So around the same time. But regardless, it presents itself as one male character surrounded by like a bunch of women characters.
Right, and it could go, which you immediately are like, is this gonna get creepy?
Yeah, and like, those were popular at the time, like the harem, whatever you want to pronounce it. But like, those styles of anime were very popular at the time, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be one of those, isn't it? Where he's trying to get with all the ladies, but
and you're like creeped out because like Rika's like a kid, and you're like, no, and Satoko's a kid, and you're like, no, thank you.
But it's not that at all. In fact, the women are like the most powerful people in that entire show. In most cases,
I would certainly
1,000%.
I would have those alarm bells for sure if I didn't have the recommendation from both of you. If I just sat down and watched that episode, even with the weird stuff, I would have been like, "Ooh, is this going to go to a place I don't like?" But I trust both of you with recommendations to not guide someone to that kind of junk without a very clear disclaimer.
Sorry, go for it, please, Pat.
The moment for me where that I was sold and I was like, maybe I need to watch the first one, is the delivery of there's a character. They're basically at a junkyard, and I won't say too much specifics, but there's a character that they run into, and that character says a weird fucked up thing to the sort of main character, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's creepy and good, and I like that, but there's a theme in the first episode where he then asks other characters about an event, and they're like, oh, it happened, it's not a big deal, and then he's like, but like, nothing violent happened, right? And they're like, no. And then it just like, it's so good the way they do like a hard cut to zoom in on their face, and the character says nothing happened, and then it cuts back, and it's like really, really jarring.
It's very jarring,
scary.
They cut out all the music, like there's no more background sounds, and it's just their voice, and then it cuts back to normalcy. It's great,
and it only lasts like a split second, and they respond very tersely, and it actually like was scary when that happened, and in it almost like a jump scare way, but not, because it's not loud, it's not like a big like something jumping out at you, but it's like so jarring, and that was the thing that for me,
tone shift.
And I think that's why, like, you mentioned that it was a little bit of a slow start, which I definitely agree,
which is fine too.
But the same thing is that it's really necessary, because like rewatching this and all the characters showing up, I had this like visceral reaction, not of like, oh no, this shit's gonna go down. It was more of like, oh yay, my friends are back. And then I'm like,
totally. So,
and it's like, I should not feel that way knowing what I know. But at the same time, like it really
absolutely
bridges that feeling of like, oh, I genuinely love these characters and want good things for them versus, but that's not how it's going to be.
Yeah.
So.
And like something that you're probably missing from all this, Pat, is the fact that they have all of the original voice cast back from the original.
Yeah.
Which
that's great.
That first run. So
that makes me
like,
want to watch the first one more too. Then.
I didn't remember. I think I saw that before, but I didn't remember it. So when the one character Satoko laughs, I was like, "Oh my god, they got Satoko right!" And I'm like, "Oh, it's the original cast."
Yeah,
yeah. I was like, well, and that's the thing too, is that I mean, like the original animation is not great, but it feels like between that and between bringing the original opening theme song back. That,
oh god, yeah,
which was the best moment. I freaked
Pat,
out
again. You probably don't get that. The song they play at the very end is the opening music from the original show.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it's like it feels very much like they loved the original and are like, hey, we love the original, you love the original, we just want to make it like a better version, but still like bring back the things that you loved. And I'm like, all for it.
It looks totally watchable too. Like, I mean, the little bits, I'm trying not to pull up anything that might be too spoilery, but the little bits that I'm looking at, clearly it's a big improvement, this new one, but it doesn't look like something I would find like unwatchable by any means.
So don't worry too much about spoilers because much like BioShock Infinite or Nier Automata or original Nier, it's hard to spoil it in like one sentence.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
It 100% is. And like, you could probably see some of the more like famous or infamous scenes and still not know what's going on.
Well, I mean, and it's obvious that there's things like, obviously, there was
horror.
a bad thing and there was a bad thing that happened in the past, and there's going to be violent murders that happen over the course of the show with various blunt and edged implements, and that the girl characters are probably the ones that are going to do most of the killing, and so like some of that is like obviously foreshadowed.
So this is kind of a spoiler, but I'll try and couch it in a way that is not spoilery, so only Allison and listeners who have seen Higurashi get it. I've just realized that there's a scene I'm dreading seeing animated with this new high fidelity art style, and that's where Rika is holding a knife. If you know what I'm talking about, that's going to be extremely fucked up in this new art style.
It definitely seems like there's basically the reason that I'm into it is that it gives me similar vibes to something like Doki Doki Literature Club.
This 100% inspired Doki Doki.
Yes, it and definitely had to.
That is a DDLC is still one of my favorite pieces of anime horror. And so I think that I'll probably like it for that reason, because I like fucked up stuff. I just like it to actually be good. The problem with a lot of horror is that it's fucked up for the sake of being fucked up, and that sucks.
And I will. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
I don't think that it's fucked up for the sake of being fucked up.
No, it doesn't seem like it so far.
There's definitely elements that are fucked up. Like, let's be clear.
Yeah.
But it's. I feel like it's more than that. So.
Yeah. And I'll say this last thing and then we can move on, because otherwise we could talk about Higurashi for a year, but like the whole season isn't even out. This is the first episode. But the thing about it is, and if you go back and watch the original, you'll probably get 4 episodes in and be like, what? And then stop. Like, that's actually what happened to me the first time I watched it. I was like, I'm like, what is even, this is stupid. And then I kind of stopped it and came back. I was like, okay, fine, let's see what's happening. And then kept going and watched it all in like a day, because I was like,
like, I am actively considering going and just rewatching it because I love it. But
I do too. I've rewatched it within the past 2 years. So.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
I think the
whole first, like I've alluded to it before, the whole first season is basically a prequel to the second season.
And it looks like both seasons are available on Hidive. So,
oh, really?
And they have it.
I didn't know that. I have a Hidive account.
Yeah,
they think that they because that's one of the biggest issues I was going to say is that a lot of places don't have the second season, which is
this appears to have the second, unless this is like some kind of gotcha and it's like they just have episode descriptions or something on here.
It is a gotcha. You got to put in a quarter, and you get
every time you watch
episodes.
An episode. That's funny.
You got 1-star episodes. You got 5-star episodes.
LOL. I am logging into my Hidive account to
I'm going to start a trial, and I think I'm going to watch it there because I would like to watch the nice thing about watching it in simulcast is one of the struggles I have with watching shows is like we still haven't watched the fucking Witcher, which is my partner's favorite video game series of all time, and Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. We haven't watched it because you have to set aside 10 hours to watch it. And that's hard for us to do because we have so many games and board games and food and stuff that we want to make and do and play.
But if you think about it, it's 10 hours of watching Henry Cavill.
No, it sounds
absolutely muscular ass.
Yes.
Wearing down leather pants for 10 hours.
I want to do, let's be clear. Wearing down leather pants and wearing down a lot of other things is something that I want to watch Henry Cavill do. However, it's still hard to set aside 10 hours for a thing. However, so my point is, it was very easy for me to say, like, especially because with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you get 2 months of Funimation right now. It was very easy for me to say, like, yeah, I'm working on a menial work task that I can do in the background for 20 minutes while I watch this episode. That's like very easy to set aside that time once a week to find 20 minutes to watch something. So obviously trying to watch seasons 1 and 2 will be a larger chunk, but I can
confirm that Kai is on Hidive. So I will probably be doing the rewatch also at some point.
Yeah. I have a lot of.
I know what I'm doing for some of this weekend.
I have a bunch of work to do this weekend, so I'm gonna throw it on while I talk to people about work junk.
Yeah. Anyways, Higurashi's great, and it seems like this remake is going to be a very loving recreation of it. So
which is exciting. If they have any
interest.
And like Pat said, if you want to watch it, it's on Funimation, which if you have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you've got 2 free months of that. So you can go watch it.
Yeah, for the new one.
Wow, Hidive's only $5 a month. That's good.
Yeah, it's actually been pretty good, except for sometimes it crashes. But other than that, Hidive is right. That's where I watched Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Very cool. Well, maybe I will actually maintain an account and watch some of that also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's good. But anyways, now getting away from one of the best shows of all time, let's talk about a video game again.
More anime.
Yeah, I was recommended 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim by one Sam Harrison. He is a member of the Gaming Fix podcast family. He is British.
Who's that?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'm joking.
Father
last week.
Father of baby Todd Howard.
Yes.
You may know him as. Anyways, he recommended this game saying very specifically that I should play it and also probably Allison should play it and said nothing else. And I was like, okay, I'll go in without any spoilers because I don't even know what it's about. And I talked about it very briefly last week at the very end of the episode saying I was like, yeah, I'm an hour in. It's not catching me so far. I'm now about 5 hours in, a little over maybe, which brings me into the first chapter, because the first two or 3 hours were the quote unquote tutorial, which had like 6 chapters, and then like that's a whatever you want to call it. Each chunk has 6 chapters, and then you're into the next chunk. So I'm in the next chunk, and it is a very time travel-y kind of science fiction weirdness thing.
Okay.
Which is probably the best description I'm going to be able to give it without directly comparing it to other things. It's essentially a visual novel in terms of...
Is it Back to the Future time travel, or is it like Avengers Endgame time travel?
It's like Terminator 2 time travel.
Okay.
And they make very specific references to Terminator 2 like within the game.
Okay.
They also make very explicit references to novels like War of the Worlds and stuff like that within it.
How nude are these time travelers?
Very.
Oh, okay.
So what happens is there's time travel, but there's also mechs. And these kids, like they're high school kids basically, because, you know, Japanese anime-y kind of stuff. They get into their mechs, and it's kind of like a Pacific Rim situation where they're becoming one with their mech and all of that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, when they manifest within it, they're naked. That has yet to be explained. I have some theories as to why, because I'm not sure if everything is actually happening in the real world, or if they're, you know, if there's some matrix.
Are you going to be ashamed of your words and deeds when you fully understand what's happening?
Probably. I'm probably going to go back to this and be like, wow, yeah, I had that all wrong. But that also is one of its strengths, is it's very twisty and turvy, and some of the stuff it does is unexpected in a way where I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That goes against the tropes it seems like you're setting up. So the story has gotten way more interesting. It essentially, like I said, it's like time travel and mechs, and there's 13 main characters basically that you're kind of watching their interweaving stories and how they relate to each other and how they affected each other in different timelines basically, and how those timelines are coming back and like merging and stuff. Like there are flowcharts in this game. Like when you get to a chapter and you hit square, it opens up a flowchart for all the various avenues you can explore.
Dang, I do need to play this game.
So that was interesting.
Charts. Oh boy.
Oh, see, it just gives me 999 Zero Escape vibes. Yeah.
So it does have a bit of that. And so one thing I think is really appealing about it that I didn't know going in because I went in blind. So you know that animation and art style that goes on in Danganronpa during its cutscenes? That's like really unique, and like it only shows up in those cutscenes, and you see it and you're like, oh, this is like visual catnip. The whole game looks like that. Like this whole game looks like that and is animated like that, just as you're controlling and as you're moving around. It's like that kind of cutout-y expressive style with like really contrasting colors and stuff. It's really smooth. It's actually really beautiful when you could take screenshots of that game and you'd be like, wow, that's stunning. So those parts of it are wonderful. And then it also has like an RTS part to it where you're controlling the mechs and like you're saying like, okay, I'm going to, there's like 40 enemies over here and I have these abilities that can hit the ones on the ground, but not the ones on the air. So what am I going to do? I'm going to send this mech over here and this mech over here, blah, 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 blah. Like you're going through these, and the RTS sections, the tutorial ones were meh, I would say. Like the first 5, I would say, were meh. And then after that, it got way more interesting. And now the RTS is actually pretty cool. I don't want to say it's mechanically like super dense. It's not like a Command and Conquer or StarCraft or anything like that. But there's enough system interaction to where it's actually, you can do some pretty creative stuff in like, you can come up with your own like builds if you want to think of it that way and experiment with them, see if they work. And then they do. And you're like, oh shit, cool. So, my opinion has gotten way more positive on it since last week. Now the story is in a place where I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to see what happens with these characters. I also don't want to talk about it because I don't know what spoilers yet because I haven't finished it. It seems like it's about a 30-hour game, and if I'm about 5.5 hours in, I might be able to finish it this week, maybe. But yeah, do y'all have any questions about it that I can answer in a non-spoilery way?
Do you still think? Do you think that Sam saying I should play it is correct?
For where I've gotten to, I would say maybe yes.
Okay.
I don't know if I would say definitive yes.
Right.
Like it does have some nonary game stuff to it, but it's not as puzzly.
Right.
And like the stuff you're doing for the fractured timeline kind of flowchart stuff is good, but not like the smoothest. Like you're having to go back to checkpoints, and sometimes to get to one flowchart, you can't just like skip through the dialogue. You actually have to go through the steps and do it, and then get there. Which I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like it'd be nicer to just fast forward through some of the dialogue, but other than that, it's pretty good.
Like that's a thing that visual novels have solved. Like the Nonary games are good about that stuff, where you can fast forward through everything you've already experienced, and then as soon as you get to something new or like a choice, and it's like, okay, we're gonna stop. You do the new thing. Okay, now you can't fast forward.
Yeah, that made playing through some of the Zero Escape games really good, because you're like, okay, skip, and then it gets to new dialogue, and you go.
Yep.
And you can watch it pretty quickly.
Yeah, same with like Steins Gate and stuff, where you are going through different timelines. Like it did it a little better than this, but I will say it's not the way that the flowcharts kind of like split up, and the points at which they do it are usually pretty early, and then from then on is when stuff changes. So you're only having to go through like 1 or 2 minutes of button mashing at most, like at very most. So it's not the worst, but it's, it could be better, but whatever. I'm gonna try and finish it. It's been more interesting than I expected. Pat, you were away for all of this, but 13 Sentinels seems pretty cool so far, actually. From where I was pretty cool on it at the start.
I was pretty hot on picking it up and trying it, because Necrobarista has me like really enjoying that, has me want to play more visual novels. The only thing holding me back right now is time rather than lack of interest. And so I was like, well, I have Steins Gate sitting on my Switch that I could be playing, and I have the Danganronpa games that are on my that I could be playing on Steam. So I have ones I could be playing, but 13 Sentinels is maybe like a new one that I would want to get into, but I really don't like the visual style of the characters when they run around.
That's so funny. We were just talking about how I love the visual style.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I think, I don't know. I like the art that I've seen of them talking like in the visual novel sequences, but like literally in the trailers, they're running around, the way that they move and animate just does not look good to me. And then the other thing that I saw that gave me pause is it has the like RTS mechanic thing, and those battles seem bad. Like they seem like filler.
Yeah, and again, we talked about exactly that while you stepped away.
Yeah, I figured.
And the short version is it starts meh, but then it gets pretty. The systems get pretty interesting and
that's good.
With each other in good ways.
I saw a very early battle, I think, because it took me a while to find some gameplay.
They suck.
It looked like actively bad, like stuff that you would wish you could just skip. And so that was why I was like, ugh, I don't know. But hearing that the story is good, and that I know that that's never the focus of the game necessarily, the battles, but hearing that they get better is enough that maybe I'll slot it in somewhere, because I like Vanillaware. That was where this was going, is that I like Dragon's Crown, and it was Odin Sphere was the other one they did, right?
Odin Sphere.
Yeah.
Odin Sphere life browser.
Yeah, I love Odin Sphere. Odin Sphere is fucking rad. So I would like to support their newest game and try it. But yeah.
If Pat is liking Higurashi, should he play the Nonary games? Is there like a correlation there?
I mean, I think that people should, but I don't know if there's a correlation.
Yeah, I don't think they're that related.
I would like to play the Nonary games at some point. Again, so this, I don't mean to always bring it back to this, because this is purely a taste thing, and there's nothing objective about it at all. But I don't like the art in Danganronpa, and I don't like the art in the Nonary games very much.
The first one, I was like, I hate this. It's very it upsets me. The style is very off-putting, I thought.
Really? Dang.
I
don't agree.
There's something very subjective. There's something uncomfortable about the way they're drawn, which works for like that style of game, but it was just like, there's something off here, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't what I was expecting. And also it was up-resed from like a PSP, so
one of the reasons that I like Higurashi so far, and then I think I'll be fine with the animation, the original one, is the general style that they go for, I think is appealing. So that's part of why it's easy for me to stick with it. Whereas, the Danganronpa in particular, Nonary games to a lesser degree, but Danganronpa in particular, I really dislike the character art in that game. But that's, again, it's a taste thing. It's subjective. Interestingly,
I can actually draw a pretty direct comparison between Higurashi and 13 Sentinels in that the thing, this is a fun thing to wrap these two back up, and then we can move on because we've been going along. But the thing that Higurashi does, and we talk about tone shifts, is it will give you a slice of life. Like, it will just give you half of an episode where you're watching the characters like play games, like literally like play games together and have fun and like have little competitions with each other where they're like, like it's endearing and cute, and it's the kind of thing you would see in high school or middle school. And it's like, yeah, these are just kids having fun. And then all of a sudden it just totally tone shifts into something completely different. And it's like, oh, now these kids are in like a really messed up situation.
That's in a way that doesn't feel cheap, though.
No, it feels natural. Like it feels earned, and it doesn't feel shoved in. Like it's not artificial. This has a lot of that as well, where it is having those kind of slice of life moments and like real lifey kind of like you can relate to this, and then one person says one thing, which like opens your brain to like, oh, what does that mean? And then everything goes crazy from there. So it's that part of it's pretty cool.
Arguably my favorite experience in horror is the moment of something is going on and then out of nowhere it's like, oh fuck, oh my god, now this is happening, Jesus Christ. And that is typically, I mean, that's why I really love, like one of my favorite horror things ever is Marble Hornets, which is like a long series of YouTube videos about Slender Man. And part of the reason that is so effective for me is that so much of that show is characters like arguing about something with some pretty poorly written dialogue, because I'm not going to lie and tell you that show is like a masterpiece of writing. But then like, you're watching them argue and it's about something kind of inconsequential, kind of relevant to the plot. But then in the background, you see like the Slenderman character, like walk between true trees. And you're like, oh, fuck. Oh my God, he's right there. Fuck, what's going to happen now? And that is why I like that show so much. And that is also why like Halloween is one of my favorite series of horror movies, because it trades so much on early moments of building tension by having him in the background, or he's just around the corner and these characters are just having a conversation and they don't even know that he's there. That feeling is like really, really something I enjoy. So that's something that the first episode of Higurashi really did, was build that like, oh god, there's something bubbling like barely below the surface here that's gonna go bad soon.
And this 13 Sentinels also has it, but rather than horror, it's sci-fi. Like it's kind of like, if you consider Terminator 2 horror parts, like, like the Sarah Connor holding onto the fence and turning into a skeleton, like that's kind of horror-y, but like not horror. Like it does have that kind of stuff going on. So
and I'm not sure how much I would enjoy that, but I would like to give it a try at some point. I might wait until I can get it on a little bit of a sale price. But I definitely am interested.
Yeah, I'll try and finish it this week and then can try and give more of a review, maybe, which I could write for the website at fix.space. We'll see. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this. We can move on to news if you would like, Andre. I think you were going to sleep soon.
There's my interest in this topic is maybe I'll check out Higurashi, but also living in Japan, that means finding like subtitled anime legally is difficult.
Which
is really frustrating.
Which is interesting considering.
Like Japan is a country that has many foreign workers, and like this is like a brief aside, but so like America, we have tons of information in like Spanish especially, but also like French and like other languages. Japan, which has a very large Brazilian population, and also, tourists from all sorts of countries and large international workforces, doesn't do a great job of putting a lot of information in like alternate languages. Like, you know, if you sign up for like something, you usually be like, okay, do you want the English like contract? Do you want the Spanish contract or whatever? Japan just doesn't have that option usually, which is frustrating. Like, you know, there is the learn the language, but also if like you said that to someone in America, to be like, oh, you know, Spanish is just as valuable or whatever. You know, it's a complicated thing. And also digital rights management and all that stuff is just a pain in the ass. Like I own like stuff on like PSN, like movie, like a TV show or like some seasons, but I can't watch it in Japan because I just like, oh, you're not in America right now, so you can't watch this even though you own it.
Yeah. Sorry, I did remember one thing I wanted to mention about 13 Sentinels that has me intrigued. And that's the fact that Kyle McCarley and Kira Buckland are voices, both of which they were respectively 9S and 2B from Nier Automata. And there's also a handful of voice actors from the English voice actors from the Danganronpa series. So I'm like,
that's cool.
This could end up in some interesting places because I know the kind of work that those people work on.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that there's quality. It's nice to hear like quality voice acting in a dub too.
Yes, the localization is excellent. Play it in English, it's totally fine.
It was a question I had going into Genshin Impact was like, well, this is a Chinese developed game, but it's clearly anime inspired. Do I want to turn on the Japanese VO? But the English VO is really, really, really good. So I just left it on and I'm happy with it. So it's always nice when that happens and it kind of removes the question.
Do not watch Higurashi season 1 and 2 with English voice acting. It is bad.
No, yeah, I will not. I'm not going to.
It is extremely bad.
Also, like, which is interesting because I've never watched it dubbed, but it's also like the Japanese voice acting is so good.
Yes, the voice acting in the
almost iconic.
Yeah, that was one thing that was stand out about that episode of the new one, and so that's part of that. That is why I ultimately found where I could stream it, because knowing that it's the same voice cast makes me even more interested in watching the originals.
All right, well, it's news time, baby.
It feels like nothing happened this week in video games.
Yeah, nothing really did.
Which is good. We needed that break.
Yeah.
Badly, very badly.
Stuff happened. Nothing like, there was nothing like a crazy substantial, but there's still news here, baby. First up on the list, in no particular order, is we got more Cyberpunk news.
Yeah.
Who's ready for Cyberpunk? It's just all smooth sailing from here, right, baby?
I've been less interested in Cyberpunk as news has come out, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, same.
I'm really anticipating it, but certainly everything that they keep saying is bad. They should just not. They should go very dark and not say anything.
Yeah. So this time they're in the news because last year they made some claims. The studio leads made some claims that they would not require mandatory crunch time on the game, and then this week they.
Anybody actually believe that though?
I didn't. It seemed like a ploy for attention in a moment.
Oh yeah, well, it was a PR stunt. And then this week they came out and said for the next 6 weeks until the game is out that all employees will be required to put in 6-day weeks, which is mandatory crunch.
Yeah.
Apparently Polish law is pretty good about this stuff and like the protections. If you're not like if you're a contract worker, these protections are less helpful, but my understanding is that they will be like compensated well. They say, oh, they're being compensated well, so it doesn't matter. But there are laws in place to make it not so bad, but this is still shitty.
I think an important note to discuss with this is, crunch sucks and it's not good, and it would be great to move away from that. We've talked about it, Alex, as someone who you have probably the most experience with this kind of work. Every project, and I'm not hand waving it, I'm talking about how it's a problem systemically. Every project, major launch project like that. I crunched working on a website recently. Like, unfortunately, when you have product launches, it feels like no one's figured out how to eliminate it. That doesn't mean we should stop trying, but it also, we haven't figured out how to get there. And I think the reason that this story is important to talk about is specifically because of those government protections and regulations that mean that these people are getting significant, as I understand it, extra compensation for putting in all this extra work. And when you're able to do things like that, or when you're required to do things like that, that makes it a little bit easier to swallow, even if it would be great systemically to find a way to eliminate it as a problem in the first place.
I believe it also limits the amount of time that they're allowed to work, even overtime, like being like a set period. I'm not entirely sure. It's Polish labor law. I'm not an expert.
That's the question I have coming out of this is it that they're working, are they working 50 hours a week? Like, is that, or 60 hours a week or something, where like it's time you could conceivably crunch into a 5-day or 4-day work week. However, because of the law, they have to spread it out more? Or are they working 100 hours a week and doing like 12-hour days or something, which that's not 100 hours, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think if they're being worked 12 to 13 hours per day and they're still doing a 6-day work week,
no, that's terrible.
Holy shit. That is like really, really bad. And that happens all the time in all kinds of industries, but it's really, really bad. But if they're working 8 to 9 hour work days, 6 days a week, still not good. And you shouldn't have to do that, but that's at least like livable levels of like work for in my experience. I've been able to like function and not be horribly depressed and worked that much, so I'm definitely curious about that.
All this news, as one would expect from the headlines that came out, etc., was a Jason Schreier piece, and he tends to just kind of put information out there without really giving all the necessary context. And one of the pieces of context that wasn't given is exactly how the compensation was happening and why the decisions happened. So Adam Badowski, who's the head, I think, like the studio head for CD Projekt Red, he came out like within an hour being like with a statement being like, okay, yeah, you're right. These last 6 weeks are our final sprint. And like, we've spent years on this, like a big chunk of our lives on it. And like the team, like they understand that they understand it. They agree with it. And they're like, okay, this is 6 weeks. We can do this to make sure that the launch goes smoothly. And like, they talk about like, yes, the compensation is in there. All of the studio splits 10% profit off of whatever it makes, like all of the team. Like, so they're being compensated, like all this stuff. And like you said, Pat, like crunch is a reality. Like no software product is ever going to launch without some form of crunch. Agile sprints are made in a way to build in crunch into smaller chunks so that it's more manageable. Like that's what project management is in large software companies, is managing crunch across discrete periods, which are usually like 2 weeks, so that it doesn't all have to bunch up at the end, but it usually does anyways. So
and I think it's a tough balancing act to talk about, because I think there are aspects of it is totally valid to say as a group, we are passionate about this project and we want to do this work. How much of that is you've been kind of programmed to think that way because of societal expectations on your labor,
right? And also like saying like we all agree that we're doing this. It's like, yeah, but how much of it is okay? If I don't agree to do that, will I lose my job or lose opportunities?
That's totally fair. Yeah, if someone cannot opt out, that's a little.
But at the same time, I get up at 5:30 a.m. every Saturday to record this podcast because I'm passionate about it and I don't make any money from it. And like and so like I do believe that you can be passionate about a thing and put labor into it because you're passionate about it. But it's a very difficult balancing act, because all of that is true as well when it comes to your job versus a hobby. And what I have tried to avoid doing in this situation, and just generally more, is I think it's very easy to say, no, fuck crunch. Crunch is bad. It ruins lives. We can't have it anymore. It's very easy to take that position. And I think ultimately I would like to take that position. However, I don't also have a solution really. And so it's like, how much of it is, I just want to make this opinion known, and how much of it is, what can we do to change it?
I mean, it's hard because I think that it is important to say, hey, developers make life nice for your
absolutely, yeah,
for your developers working on it. Like it, but it's also like, you know, since we're not running the studios, we don't know exactly how.
Yeah.
And I think there's like both sides to that, right? So whereas like, since we're not running the studios, we don't know how we can eliminate crunch, but at the same time, like, you know, we don't know the full extent to,
yeah,
you know,
and
is it mandatory? Is it not? Like, how long is the crunch? Like, you know, what hours are they working?
I have experience working in some pretty shitty, just again, on a spectrum, far from as shitty as it gets, but some fairly shitty conditions in a crunch environment, not in software development in particular, but around tech. And it was awful. And I wasn't necessarily super passionate. I bought into the competitive mentality of like, well, we're just going to get this shit done and we're going to make the money and we're going to go home and it's going to be great. Even though I was really not in a good position mental health wise at the time because of it. That was in a very specific context in this country with limited labor protections. I was not in a union. Government couldn't give fuck all about keeping me protected mentally or whatever. I think it's hard to say with a company like CD Projekt, they're in a country that has better protections and they just have a totally different culture. So it's difficult for me to like examine it too much because I don't know much about Polish culture. I don't know much about Polish labor culture. I don't know much about CD Projekt studio culture really. So it's a challenge to I think you have to think about context. And so I'm glad that like they came out and said something. It was also a high level person saying something doesn't necessarily mean that much. So I would be curious to see any reporting done on this, talking to people who are actually like embedded in the teams
on the ground level, totally
anonymized, so that they can actually say what they think. I suspect it would not be the same situation as what you would hear with something like NetherRealm, that crunch story about someone like passing away in part because of the strain of their labor. I would suspect it would not fit that same mold because it is such a different work culture, but I could be wrong. It could be really, really bad there. It's hard to know without deeper reporting.
I think for the story in particular, like crunch isn't new. We've talked about it on this podcast before with different studios and those issues like over the last year and, you know, going back a long time. But this story hits and like, I think it kind of got in the discourse because of the statement that they put out last year, like, oh, or whenever they did it, like we're doing no mandatory crunch,
which is a foolish thing for them to say.
They're setting themselves up for like
right.
It's, you know, it's the me reaping or me sowing. Oh yeah, fuck yeah, and me reaping. Oh no, what the fuck?
Yeah.
When people, you know, people get mad after you put out the unrealistic expectations that you can't hold to. And
CD Projekt perpetually has a gun aimed at their foot, right? Like they keep talking about this game, which and putting out stuff that when you take it out of the context of the game itself seems pretty bad, and it may be really bad in the game too. We haven't played it, but to me it's like showing off the gangs, for example. There's a way that could be very interesting and nuanced, but you really are going to need to see it in the context of the game by pulling it out for marketing and saying, here are these different flavors of people that we've come up with. It's like,
here are different race archetypes.
Yes, it's really bad. And it looks like shit when you pull it out. I mean, you can I think there are ways where you could make a lot of different games that have diverse casts look like shit if you pull out very specific parts of them and show them off. So we don't know. It could just be that in the game it sucks. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I really think that they just need to shut up and stop saying stuff. Because it seems like I follow some people who work there who are really fucking cool people, and they don't strike me as the kind of people that would put up with a really abusive culture and a really intolerant culture either. So I have a hard time believing that that's just like super baked into the culture, but it's also hard to know because the only things that ever seem to get out in the news are shitty things. So it's just, it's weird, and they need to.
Well, the positive stuff they try to put out there, then they end up reneging on. So
so that's true too.
Yeah.
Well, that game is like 6 weeks away, and I believe it's insert now.
Yep. I think it's been going through it.
So we'll play that game, or some of us will.
I will say, like, I'm still really excited to play it. I want to play it. Don't blame anybody who says I think this stuff looks like bullshit. I'm out. Totally valid, but I'm still pretty excited for it.
Yeah. Our next news story. You'll never see it coming. Steve.
I thought it was going to be like
Minecraft roster.
I thought you were going to give it a bit more of the flow that actually happened in reality.
It doesn't need it, does it?
It's like,
I mean, it's cool. It's fine.
It has been rumored. People have been saying it for ages. Like as the roster of Smash became more and more diversified from just Nintendo characters with the DLC for this new game. And everyone's like, Steve from Minecraft Steve. And sure enough, they finally did the thing. They're putting Steve in Minecraft.
I thought for sure it was going to be a Monster Hunter character.
You would think.
I was a little shocked that it wasn't. Right after, it's such good timing for them to announce a Monster Hunter character.
They could still do it.
What was the other?
Yeah, like I think once Arise has been out, maybe that'll be the time.
Because there isn't a character, right? There's just the stage.
Yeah. There's like a Rathalos in the game, but there's no Monster Hunter character.
Because it seems like just a hunter would make so much sense, and they could have like a stance change to different weapons. And
yeah. Well, the part of the story I found always interesting with Nintendo is that they announced this with like less than 24 hours in advance.
Well, it was also it was like our new Smash Bros. Character. The new Smash Bros. Character is dropping announcement, where they were like, "Hey, tune into like the Minecraft thing to learn about Steve." And like, oh, okay, because they didn't like talk much about the actual like thing themselves.
And then Sakurai like ranted about how no one likes his ideas for like 10 minutes.
He was like, making characters is hard, and I'm like, Sakurai, you deserve the world. Let's be honest.
I don't remember the exact quote, but he was basically saying like, sometimes upper management makes decisions that you just have to follow through on.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask you, hey, how about Steve from Minecraft in Smash? And you have to go, okay.
I don't know what it is. It's not the first time he's done something like it, but I found him scratching his chin, just sort of sitting there staring at the camera, waiting for he was waiting for it to start, was very funny too. At the beginning. It's just it was wonderfully weird in a lot of ways. I don't give a shit about Smash anymore, but I'm always happy to listen to Sakurai talk about stuff.
What if I told you they made, when Kirby eats Minecraft Steve, he becomes a square.
He does become a square.
A pixelated square.
I do like that.
There was a fake image going around of Kirby where it was more like rounded, like they're like a little chunk taken off at the corners to make it seem more rounded, but he is just a square when he eats.
That's good.
Steve.
I don't think this is not meant as a knock against Smash players, because I understand why people love it so much. I'm not making an objective statement here. I literally do not think there is anything they could do to make me care about Smash.
Yeah, I tried. I was thinking Smash Ultimate, and I was like, "This is going to be the one." I was thinking that mode.
They could announce like a Coheed and Cambria stage with Claudio from the story as a character, and I would go, "That's fucking rad," and watch the announcement and never play it.
And the stage is on the Quantum Moon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They could announce that you can play as the ship from the Outer Wilds in Smash.
It controls just like
and I wouldn't give a fuck. I don't know why. I don't know how I could be so apathetic, and I don't dislike it either. That's the thing. If I'm like, when COVID's over and I can travel again, I'm sure that I'll be at a friend's house at some point, and they'll say, "Do you want to play Smash?" And I'll go, "Yeah, sure," and I'll play it for a half hour, and it'd be fine. It's not even that I dislike it. I just super apathetic towards it.
I like Smash, but it is that I need to play it with other people. Like, I need to be on the couch playing with people.
Yeah.
And that's just not a thing that can happen right now, which sucks. But Maybe. I wonder. Parsec does like. I wonder if there's any way to like do the switch through Parsec and do like some like co-op stuff that way. But I guess you could just do online at that point. But
Yeah,
I'll have to look into that. But if like my friend doesn't have a Switch or whatever, you know, who knows? I just like connect a controller to the PC and then that'll like Bluetooth somehow. I don't know. They have like some console stuff. But anyway, let's see. Speaking of, I don't know how long the story is going to take. Speaking of Nintendo, they done called the cops on some people.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Fuzz.
I think the most important part of the story is I don't either. I think the most important part of the story is that someone there is named Gary Bowser,
which they are arrested.
That person has to be Doug Bowser's like nephew or something.
And
legitimately.
And Reggie tweeted, "I want the keys to the kingdom back, Bowser," and added Doug Bowser. So
Reggie's on my shit list right now, but that's very funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is Team Xecuter, I think, Xecutor, however you want to do it. They're kind of this
Xecuter.
Execute, because it's eggs.
It's a Pokemon?
Get it? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Get the joke?
Executable.
Eggs, because it's an egg.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Execute.
We're learning so much today.
Fuck. Anyways, so they're this group that's been around for like a long time, since like 2001 or something. And it's mainly been the same people, where they will mod consoles and they will do mod chips that you can purchase, and they will basically, like, you know how if you're doing like, what's it called? If you're doing
soft modding?
Yeah, but it's soft modding, but like if you're doing like a root on your Android and then what's it called? Jailbreaking on iPhones?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like basically that kind of stuff. And they're selling people the ability to do that on like their Switch and OG Xbox and like PlayStations and stuff like that. So they've been doing this for years. They've been selling it through their site, and it's been always questionably legal, but it's not been fully illegal because they're selling you the platform basically, and then what you choose to do with it is your call kind of thing. So they've been able to
what are you going to buy it for other than, you know, it's like
so shaky to me.
It's like how like a lot of piracy websites are like, it's technically legal, but it's like,
you can download the ROM if you own it and like kind of stuff. Yeah.
Somebody once sold me on the way they did it to their Xbox, and they were like, well, I just hobby wise, I'm interested in programming and like learning how this stuff works. And I was like, get a fucking Raspberry Pi or something. Like, you're doing this because you want free video games.
And I mean, there's an element of like, you know, do what you want, but don't try to like say, oh, look at all of the reasons that we can do you can buy this for. It's like you're buying this to pirate games. Like, I think be real.
In some cases, if it's an older system, if it's an original Xbox at this point or something, and people are researching how to build emulators and stuff like that for game preservation purposes, I don't have any problems with that.
Right. Yeah.
I firmly am of the stance that if a company does not want to sell you a game, in a reasonable manner, I mean, like, I think there's like, let's put it this way: there's one of the Trails games that I'm interested in playing at some point. Currently, the only way to purchase it is to use very intrusive DRM that is connected to Tencent and give them your PayPal, which is like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. But if a company is not willing to sell you their game in like a legal way, then sure, figure out a way to emulate it. That's preservation at that point. But this is not that.
Well, also like there's also the hardware, like it's your hardware. You can do what you want with it angle, which I think kind of falls into the right to repair stuff. And you can argue like against the piracy aspect of it all day, but I think there is the, like, if you're buying a thing for that, like mods your console, that should be your right to buy that thing. And, you know, the piracy issue is certainly an aspect there, but that's such a small market that, like, bottom line, I don't think it actually hurts them that much.
It doesn't, but
not a huge deal.
Like, no matter the case, like even like setting aside the piracy issues, the thing that was more interesting about this story is the fact that Nintendo finally put their foot down and actually did like actionable things, which no other console maker has done. And Nintendo's been more aggressive with like, you know, their YouTube kind of tirade they went on for
right, and with like fan games and stuff too.
Yeah, and like the presence of Smash at Evo was a big thing for a long time. Like they tend to be very controlling over their IPs, over their hardware, everything like that. So now they're actually like having these people arrested, extradited, sent to the US so that they can all be put on trial. Like one of them is a Canadian, one of them is from Europe, and I think one of them is from China. Like there's 3 people that overall were involved, and they're all being extradited to the US to face trial and will probably face prison time for federal offenses. And that's setting a crazy precedent because that actually hasn't happened.
And to be clear, I don't think that putting people in prison is the right way to go about solving this. One thing to me that, you know, Jeff Gerstmann of Giant Bomb has always talked about this. The best way to combat piracy is to make it not worth someone's time to pirate.
Right. To make it easier.
Like it's like how you saw piracy going down like when more digital streaming stuff became available for like movies, where it's like it's cheaper. You don't have to bother with piracy.
And like CD Projekt is a great example. Having just talked about them, they released their games DRM free on GOG, and you can totally pirate. It's very easy to pirate the Witcher games. Like you can just go to a pirate site and get the full file. You don't even need to mount anything. It's like very easy. But they support their games so well that by owning The Witcher 3, you got tons of additional, like minor, but additional content that pirates were going to take months to code in. And a lot of it was for free. So it's easier to just buy the game and support it and have access to all that stuff than it is to go through the process of pirating it.
Right. And I think people saw that with Steam sales too, even where it's like, hey, you know that if you wait for a few months that you can get it for $20 or $5. So you're kind of like, if it's that easy to get it for not that much money, why do I necessarily need to pirate? Like the people will still pirate, but you know,
it makes it lessens the impact. Yeah.
And it lessens the people who want to support it, but can't for whatever reason. But
I definitely got to the point where it just became, if I'm not willing to pay for this thing, why would I want to even bother pirating it?
I agree. That's like, my feeling.
Right.
As well. That's
if it's not good enough, if it's not good enough to pay for, it's not good. It's not enough. It's not worth my time, basically.
Yeah, totally. So like the piracy aspect, it is what it is. SXOS is what they made. If you want to look that up and see what it is, just to know.
Oh, so they worked on the Xbox too, the new Xbox. I see.
SSOX socks.
Series
the socks.
OX. Yeah. But it's worth looking into to see what it was. Like you can form your own opinions on, you know, if that's something you ever want to participate on. Like people were doing interesting stuff with it, such as last year getting Super Mario 64 to run on it with actual upscaling and with actual new textures and stuff like that. So it was a port rather than, you know, an upraised version of a N64 game. It's like they were doing interesting stuff with it. And that stuff's cool, but it's the legal precedent that this sets. And whatever happens with this trial is going to set a lot of... It's going to set a lot of precedents for the future. Like,
you really hope that whatever judge is sentencing in this case is like, you made some hardware to do weird stuff with a video game console. Like that's not worth your life being ruined, because it isn't. It really isn't.
No.
And I worry that because if the trial is happening in the U.S. court system, the U.S. court system is definitely like, people, your life is nothing. Business is what matters. That's generally the way that.
Don't you know that businesses are people and they're like the best people?
Our justice system is definitely geared towards like, if corporations are like divine versus the trash of humanity. So unfortunately, they might end up getting the book thrown at them, but that would really suck. And hopefully, if that happens, people are vocal about it.
Yeah. So. We'll keep an eye on it. Modern Vintage Gamer has a really good video kind of explaining a lot of the more technical details. I would recommend that. I will put it in the show notes.
Well, speaking of politics and games, Nexusmods said, hell no, get your politics out of our games, and has banned all US political mods until
well, at least they won't have to have that won't affect Ubisoft games because they don't have politics in their games.
No, it'll affect mods for Ubisoft games, which I don't even know if you can mod Ubisoft games on Nexusmod. And so, yeah, there have been Nexusmod's statement about all this stuff was pretty strongly worded. They're like, the people uploading these are cowards on sock puppet accounts. I haven't seen the mods in question.
Did they actually say sock puppet?
Yeah. They're like, these people are too, like, they're cowards and they won't use their real accounts. They're just trying to to be divisive and upload bullshit.
This is the one time. This is the one time that I actually don't have a ton of criticism for an organization saying no politics. I can't believe that I feel that way, but looking into this a little bit more, like, I think I'm okay with not being able to play as Bernie Sanders in Skyrim right now if it also means that it's not loaded up with Trump trash. Like, well, generally,
this isn't retroactive.
It's for future uploads from the 28th onwards.
Yeah, and they're basically like, we'll revisit this after the inauguration, whatever that's what I mean.
Is.
But their announcement is buck wild, where it's like, if you see one of these mods, I suggest you do as our terms of service say and report the mod and move on without engaging with the content. Your engagement will only fuel the idiots further.
Yeah. Which is like,
that's amazing.
Dang. I'm like, it is buck wild.
Yeah, it's good. It's funny because I heard about this news right as I was looking at I'm not going to get into specifics, but a database for fan content for a card game that I really like.
Sure.
And one of the fan decks that someone made was a Donald Trump themed deck. And I was like, man, I was just trying to look for some interesting, weird shit. And now I got to look at this crap. And it was not tongue in cheek. It was not humorous. It was like his special power was to build the wall and shit. And it sucked. And I wished it wasn't there. Normally I am very against limiting, like, quote, political content. But for right now, in that space, I actually think it's okay.
Well, we'll see how that goes. It was a surprising thing, and I was a fan of just how they were like, these people are cowards.
These people suck. Like, let's be real.
That's very good.
I think if I made a mod for Skyrim where an original character that I wrote who was like a shitty leader, and then they got like sick from a plague, and it was clearly like a parallel to real life, but not explicitly a like play as Donald Trump in Skyrim. I think if that got removed, I would maybe be a little frustrated, because I think like writing original content that has political commentary in it is one thing versus, because that's true of all stuff really. But if they're banning like play as Trump in Skyrim mods, then yes, that's good. Get rid of that for a while.
Can I still play as Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, that's a good question. I was about, as you said the words, I was like, he's not political, but he is.
But then he totally is.
He's both.
So what is it? Considering the low quality of the mods being uploaded, the polarizing views they express, and the fact that a small but vocal contingent of your users are seemingly not intelligent or grown up enough to not be able to debate the issues without resorting to name calling and baseless accusations without proof, indicative of the wider issues plaguing our world at this time, we've decided to wipe our hands clean of this mess and invoke an outright ban on mods relating to socio-political issues in the United States.
Also,
that's great.
The phrase later in this post, to be blunt, we do not care how this looks. You're just like, God.
Wow, I didn't read the whole statement. I just saw the news story headline, basically. That's good.
That's awesome. It's within their power. It is their
hopefully
platform.
That's
say and do what you want on other sites or services. We care nothing for it here.
That's amazing. That's super great.
There's a lot of communities that could use that kind of leadership. Let's put it that way.
Honestly, I kind of dig it.
Yes, that's great.
The last thing I want to say on this is a quote from them is just, I think it's powerful, is we have neither the time, the care, or the wish to moderate such things. Just like, this is not like,
Yeah,
That's great.
we just want to, let you mod in nude ladies to your games, get your
Clean
like
faces.
Clean up those
political.
faces.
Yeah.
Smile and be happy in the knowledge that time it took them to make an account on the site and upload their mod is a lot longer than it takes for us to ban the account and delete the mod.
These guys kick ass. All right.
All that you can make detailed mods with positioning that allow you to bone people in Skyrim, but
And dragons.
U.S. political.
I mean,
I need to do
there
some
has to
research.
be a mod for that.
I need to do
There
some
has to be.
research after
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, no.
I might need to make some films.
Baby.
Oh, and to be clear, like I don't really typically get into like the technical side of modding or things, but Nexusmods is like literally the only thing I've used for modding because it's so easy.
It's great.
Because I modded some stuff for Dragon Age Origins, and it was very, very easy.
Yeah, and I went into this story thinking, yeah, okay, but all those statements made me
They're really good. Yeah.
I know. I was like, I hadn't read this before our podcast either, and now I'm like, dang, I'm glad we talked about that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
We should do quick hits for the rest of these.
Yeah.
They can,
All right. Yeah. The Series X got out into the wild into some media hands, and some impressions and benchmarks for backwards compatible games started coming out. And hey, those backwards compatible games, they run better, often at 60 frames per second in 4K upscaled. So there you go. Load times also drastically reduced, which is nice because these are games that did not have any like Series X patch or anything like that for them. So without doing any work, they vastly improve performance.
On that note, it sounds like on the flip side, something we don't have on the dock because I'm just seeing it now, the PS5 only has 664 gigabytes of usable hard drive space.
Yes, SSD space, please. But yes, that is because the OS takes up like 120 or whatever.
Yeah, that sucks.
I imagine
104, 128 on the Xbox. Yeah, I mean it's even worse for the Series S.
It's not gonna matter for me because I'm gonna play like a game or two at a time on PS5 because I use PC for my like service game stuff like Modern Warfare or whatever. But man, if that's your primary console, I see some people saying like, well, you're only going to have a game or two installed at a time. But no, I mean, if you have 200 gigabytes,
a lot of games.
Yeah, if you have 200 gigabytes of Call of Duty and 100 gigabytes or 60 gigabytes, whatever, of Destiny, and you play a sports game, that's starting to look real slim for extra room for your prestige Sony games.
Think about like how big were game sizes at the start of this generation and how big are they now? Because if we're starting this generation with 20 to 50 gigabyte size games, maybe we get to 200 and 500 gigabyte games. And if you're still using your launch PS5,
Spider-Man, like the Miles Morales Ultimate Edition with the Spider-Man Remastered is like 105 gigs or something. So
and this is the start of the gen. So
yeah. And that's 2 games, but still like they're using a lot of similar assets and things like that. Yeah. So, and Demon Souls, that was like a what, 30 gigs? I don't know. It's not that big. The original maybe is like 9 gigs or something. This new one's like 66 or something, I think. So
hey, Andre. Speaking of Spider-Man,
they changed his face, baby.
That was so weird.
I came around on it.
Really? Oh.
So I don't like it still. It's still bad. She still looks the wrong way, but I came around on like their reasoning at least. Like it makes sense. And
okay, I thought you were going to say like the new face is better actually, and I'm like, I don't get that, but
no, it's not better. The problem is that apparently with the new motion capture technology that they're using, I think Yuri was the face model for the last one, like that they used him to mocap is what I was hearing. But either way,
that would make sense. But
the problem is with their old tech, the fidelity was such that they could like take Yuri's mocap data and hang a person on him that looks like a 23-year-old ish. I mean, that he looked older than 23 in that game, but whatever. With their new technology, it's like too high fidelity, so they can't not make him look like he's 49 years old.
That sounds like some bullshit. Like,
maybe it's bullshit. And if it's bullshit and they were just like, we wanted to look more like Tom Holland, then we're in for quite the ride, because that's a fucking stupid reason to do that. But
if they can turn Benedict Cumberbatch, that, you know, this was said on Waypoint Radio, you know, they could turn Benedict Cumberbatch into a dragon. Like, there's no reason they can't turn.
How was that dragon?
Very low. I don't know. Did you see The Hobbit?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, I don't know. Yuri was out there saying he was kind of like, it's because of my bone structure that they can't do that. They can't use me anymore.
And I mean, that's
my bone.
That's what he says.
That's got nothing to do with you know, the age. That's like, I mean, I guess your bone structure changes as you age.
That's what I mean. That was my and I maybe misinterpreted it.
Like it just, you know, they wanted someone who looked more like Yuri to make that smoother. But if you're just, why not just, if they're capturing his face, why not just put Yuri's face on the Spider-Man? I don't know,
because it doesn't look right. It looks like, the point that from what I understand, it looks really fucking weird. So they needed to just unfortunately throw the whole man away except for his voice and
whole man disposal service coming through. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that the person that they chose, I mean, maybe he's a very, I feel bad because it is modeled after a real person, and I've said some harsh things about his appearance, and I'm sure that the real man that is modeled after is probably pretty nice and fine. But this makes Peter not look like a kid who grew up with lesser means. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't look like a guy who's running around finding his belongings in a dumpster after he's been evicted.
Exactly. Yes. It's yeah. He looks very preppy.
Speaking of dumpsters,
Farmville is going to close its the barn door in a couple months. The end of December. Is that what we're going for here?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were going to say the RTX 3070.
No, that's not a dumpster.
There's
whole
three
launch,
things
I don't know.
on here that could be a dumpster.
Yeah. So Farmville, Farmville is going. That Facebook Classic is going to cease operations in December at the end of the year.
For reasons which makes sense, though.
Go check in on your farms from like 10 years ago. See how your corn's doing.
The reason is starting. Well, I think it's actually happened. Is starting in October, which it is now. Flash is being killed in major browsers like Chrome, etc. So it's a Flash game. Why would they support it?
Crap.
So
I wonder.
Whatever.
Okay.
It's Farmville. I played it for a solid, let's say, 2 days back when that was a thing.
I think I had friends that asked me like, "Hey, will you do the thing?" And I said, "Sure." And I tried it, and I was like, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah.
But
it was something to kill time while I was on Facebook in like group chats or whatever. But okay. It's hard. Like, it's easy to forget that it was ever a thing because like
it sure is. I saw that. I was like, "Oh, Farmville. That's a name I haven't heard in a very long time." Like.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
RTX, we just brought it up. RTX 3070 was supposed to launch sometime in the next like 2 weeks, the 15th or something, 14th, 15th. The new NVIDIA mid-range graphics card, or like upper mid-range, but they have said, hold on, we have heard your complaints, and because we want to have more cards for launch, we are going to delay to October 29th, and all those cards are still going to sell out.
Which is suspiciously close to AMD's reveal event for their new GPU, which is October 28th.
And I mean, like, the AMD stuff is going to be out there probably in November, it sounds like.
It seems like they'd want to beat AMD to the punch. It's weird that they must be pretty confident that.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with like Xbox and PS4, PS5 at this point where they're all going to sell out anyway.
Yeah,
right now.
no, for sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and the performance stuff on the AMD stuff is interesting, but
the thing I have heard, and I've been watching this in tech circles, is people saying that NVIDIA is potentially going to wait to see if like the price comes out on those things, on the new Radeons, and see if they should adjust the price of their 3070 the day after, like to kind of, you know, like kind of take the rug out from under them. Because the new RDNA 2 cards from AMD, they seem like they'll probably be fine to good. But if the 3070 can outperform them for cheaper, then why wouldn't NVIDIA do that?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but like the fact that AMD is waiting so long to show that stuff is really fascinating, especially with some of like the stuff that the scuttlebutt around what they've been saying, like, oh, we're gonna have plenty for launch, and stuff like, you know, oh, we're not impressed by the 3090, stuff like that is like, oh, okay, talking big game. I was watching some Moore's Law stuff on it, and that's Moore's Law is dead. Sounds interesting. I don't know, too early to say. Now that I have not been able to get a PS5 pre-order in, now I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll get a GPU, but also they're all sold out all the time, so maybe I won't get anything.
No food, no nothing, no money spent.
No, I'm gonna save up all my money, hunger strike until I can get a GPU or a console.
God.
Speaking of delays, WoW Shadowlands has been it's not indefinitely, because they said it's by the end of the year, but they've not given a date for the new expansion to WoW coming out. Pat, any thoughts on this? You're the only one here playing WoW. Pat is frozen. I thought he was just spaced out. No, he is frozen. He's gone.
Yeah, I thought he was just spaced out too.
That's just his reaction. Oh, Pat's gone. No.
Goodbye, Pat. We hardly knew ye. That was not going to be funny for anyone else, because no one could see him. But it was just Pat, open-eyed, just kind of dead eye, staring at the camera.
Staring into the distance. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's Shadowlands.
I don't think any of us care. So.
Pat banished to the Shadow Realm. Yeah. And
too bad he's not here for our last story though.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, after months of downplaying coronavirus, aka COVID-19, has contracted COVID-19 and attended several events where he has spread the virus to numerous people, which is terrible. But he's got COVID-19, which is really funny.
Yeah, it is. This podcast isn't going to be like Twitter, where we're like suddenly taking a stand on people being mean on the internet just for this. But
yeah, no, and we're not terribly political in nature in terms of we don't just straight up talk politics most of the time. We'll talk about
don't talk politics all the time, but I feel like we can say fuck Trump and
yeah, absolutely. And there's been the Twitter discourse of, oh, but you should be nice to him and say like,
no,
wish him well. No, I don't. I personally don't.
He does not deserve an iota of respect or sympathy or empathy or, you know, COVID-19, hell of a disease. Absolutely hell of a virus. It can, you know, but when you spend months downplaying this and directly causing 200,000 Americans to be killed due to your inaction and your just absolute horseshit leadership, you do not get to go, you do not get to play the respect and sympathy and thoughts and prayers for Trump to get for a speedy recovery.
Yeah,
absolutely not. Yep. The same day that this news broke, they're sending out lying Obama and Joe Biden. They're already raising more money and people calling for Joe Biden to suspend his campaign. And like, I don't particularly like Joe Biden. But are you fucking kidding me? If the shoe was on the other foot, some of these people, like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, dancing in the streets basically about Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying, or calling for, the death of Ilhan Omar, AOC, all these people. And then they want to play the, oh, no, you shouldn't wish death on anybody, blah, blah, blah. Fuck off.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the whole Twitter thing, where Twitter is basically being like, hey, you have to be nice to people. Like we delete and suspend people, anybody who does this. God, and it's like, people are like, untrue. Bullshit. like
remember
fuck all the way off.
I've reported there are people who are like, I've reported so many tweets of people who've like threatened death against me, and what happened? Nothing. So
where we have not been particularly overtly political on the podcast, I think all of us can say definitively fuck Donald Trump, and hey, if he dies from COVID, that sounds like the best possible outcome to me, because he has done far more harm to the world than good. So whatever.
I can't even go as far to say that. Like, there's so many like ripple effects and things like branching off of that. Like, I just, like, if he dies in like the next week, I saw something CNN reporting he's having trouble breathing. If he dies in the next week,
he's also taken like weird experimental medicine.
Yeah.
And
what does that do to the election?
Yeah.
Like, what does this do? Like, if he pulls through, what does that do to the election? Like, what is going on? It is paired with mouth dreams. This week on Twitter has been absolutely buck wild, the discourse, and it's nice to see everybody just like really positive about this.
Between mouth dreams, between the COVID announcement, and between the giant skeleton from Home Hardware or Home Depot.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Home Depot.
Yesterday, my mom sent me a text message that was basically like, hey, today we're going to watch Great British Bake Off. We're having waffles for dinner, and Trump has COVID. It is a great day. And I was like, my mom is definitely not the type of person who's like going to wish harm on anybody, but she was just like, today is great.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. There we go.
It's, boy, this, you know what? I have not been particularly enthused about voting for Joe Biden, but at this point, you need to
go vote.
You need to vote. I need to get my ballot sent in. But tell yourself whatever it is you need to make yourself feel good about your choice. I'm telling myself it probably won't happen, but I am telling myself Joe Biden will get high-speed rail done in the U.S. Will it happen? Probably not. But Joe Biden likes fucking trains. You know what? I'm gonna roll back that. Joe Biden fucking likes trains. Joe Biden fucking likes trains. He likes riding them. You know what? I'm gonna believe God. that's the one thing that I can trust him on is his love of trains.
Yeah. I do love the video of him getting distracted by the train.
Yeah, I was like, you know what?
Yeah. Honestly, what a mood though, for real.
That's a totally fair point, though. Yes, we encourage people to vote.
Yeah.
Biden in this comment.
I voted. I had to not vote for Kanye because he was on my ballot.
What?
Kanye was on my ballot. For real.
This is okay. Well,
he's apparently, I think, on lost. On a couple of state ballots,
which is bullshit because he tried to get in after like the deadline. So like, I don't even know. Okay. Anyways,
I did not vote for Kanye, but I've been joking about it with my family all week.
Please do it. I think anyone listening to this podcast is probably intending to vote, but I've definitely this year I've definitely struggled with but I'm going to do it. Anyway.
Anywho.
this has gone on far too long today. Thanks for joining us, everybody, on episode 141 of the Gaming Fix podcast on October 3rd, 2020. I have been your host, Andre Cole, aka your partner's favorite track off Mouth Dreams. You can find me on Twitter at Coolslaw, COOLSL4W. And you can go over to podchaser.com/gamingfix to leave us a review of the podcast, which helps us improve. You can email us at gaming@fix.space. You can go over to fix.space, maybe see some other reviews we've written. I don't think there's anything like super new on there. Twitter.com/fixpodcast. Anything else in that vein? I don't think so. Thanks again to Jeff Davis for our theme, the new theme. It's great. We love it. Allison, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at WRITERSERENYTY.
Great. And Alex?
You can find Pat at PJC Plays.
I asked for you.
Yahoo!
Okay, bankrupt. I got it. God, Yahoo was worthless as a company in North America. Like, did you know that?
No, they were worth a lot, and then they were worthless.
And now they are worthless. Like,
yes.
Basically, but Japan, they're like super valuable. Like, they're a mobile carrier and all sorts of stuff. Anyway.
Yep.
All right. Well.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week, and this is going to be a hell of a week, everybody.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Bye.